Yo, what's up, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, baby. Are you guys ready for some bends? You guys ready to do some bends? We're going to have some fun today. I hope you guys are really excited for this. Hey, what's up? What's up? Yeah, dude, you guys are all here, dude. This is great. Dude, we've had some great feedback from you guys. Thank you so much. A lot of followers, a lot of fun stuff. We're growing here at Thermaltake Live. That's us, baby. Streaming Thermaltake Live. We got a new show. This is episode 4. Episode 4. We're getting bigger, baby. You guys like my outfit? You guys like my new Thermaltake approved bending outfit? I even got the custom-made Thermaltake hat.
Start the stream. Probably apologize.
So we had a little bit of a technical difficulty on the last stream. So we do apologize for that. It was towards the end of the stream. So yeah, Steve made me push that one out fast. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for reminding me.
I'm sorry, I can't control my salty tears.
Yeah, it was just a scenario where we're towards the end of the stream and yep, we lost internet. But it came back like too long and I didn't want to I wasn't going to do a stream for just a little bit. We were pretty much close to the end there. But we were having a lot of fun though. I think that Splunky 2 gameplay was pretty good. We were having a lot of fun with that. It's a pretty difficult game from what I've been playing with it and everything. I got to play it a little bit more over the weekend and it's been a lot of fun. We're going to be doing some more stuff too. Definitely doing some more stuff. Yep, Cyberpunk got delayed until December 10th. Sad face. But you know what? If anything, and all the alphas, betas, and whatever that I've done and everything, if the game comes out even better, that's going to be, the best case scenario. Because how many of us here play beta test on almost every game nowadays? 3 days. The people need to see. We'll get some Steve in here. We'll get some Steve in.
Don't lie to the people.
I'll make him. Don't worry.
No.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of fun stuff in store today. Basically, what we're going to be doing on today's stream for Thermaltake Live is going over hard tube bending tips and tricks, showing you guys kind of what you need to do to kind of get some stuff started, some real straightforward, instructions on, how to do a good 90 and a 45, 180, and kind of going back to the basics with a lot of stuff with the tubing. And you got to start out somewhere, right? And I think a lot of this is for people that are looking to build a new system. I mean, it's been a pretty big craze nowadays with a lot of the new graphic cards coming out. A lot of people are real excited and they want to freshen up their build. And maybe they're running an AIO and they're getting a little bored of that. They want to do a little bit more, or they already have a current DIY LCS system already set up and they're looking to, replace that graphics card. The legendary graphics cards that are hard to find, as well as getting blocks for them, and then, incorporating those back into, say, their existing system. Maybe you want to freshen up some tubing and everything like that. We've got some good games coming out. We got Call of Duty Cold War. We had Cyberpunk, but, it got pushed back just a little bit. But I think it'll be okay. Yep, spiral loops. Some other things. I actually have a really neat little trick to show you guys about doing some really cool little spirals I think you guys will like. I've done it before at events and everything, but I haven't really had a chance to do something like this on, like a stream where you guys could watch. And as I go through it, you guys can ask questions and stuff. So, yeah, they are very legendary. We're definitely, looking to try to get that new hotness. I mean, hey, and you can get one right here. We have a Halloween PC giveaway, guys. Halloween PC giveaway. If you guys have not entered yet, you still have time. We're giving away this entire PC. This PC right here has an RTX 3080 in it with a 3900X. We got Seagate teaming up here with us. We got some Gen 4 storage performance. We got a 1 terabyte M.2 in there with a 2 terabyte SSD. No HDDs here, folks. No HDDs here. And then, of course, we have Thermaltake cooling, chassis, and power. So everything all tied in together. We got those nice Ring Trio fans all set up in here. And we gave it a little extra touch with some sleeve extension cables. Of course, we got our tough RAM in there. 32 gigs, by the way. So, I mean, this is definitely not your small fry mid-tower PC. This thing's pretty packed. And, yeah, we're really excited to give this away to some lucky winner. This is going to be awesome. So, yeah, entries and everything are still going all this week. We're going to have the entries going in until October 31st, which is Halloween. You know, Halloween pizza giveaway. And we'll be announcing the winner next Tuesday. So if you guys are here for the stream this Tuesday, you guys signed up and everything. If you want to be highlighted and we can all celebrate for you, don't miss that stream. We're going to be announcing the winner live on the stream. And for those of you that have already maybe got some entries in and you haven't gotten that secret code yet, we'll be popping up a new secret code for today. And to clear up a couple of things too with that, the secret code's only a one-time thing. So if you already got the secret code in, you don't have to worry about it. As long as you've already gotten that secret code marked off for one of your entries, you're good to go. But if you didn't, I'll have a new secret code for today, and you can use that code to enter to get one more entry. One more chance, one step closer. So how you guys been? How's everybody? Well, we got some good people on here. Wow. All right, man. All right. Yeah, you know, a Steve cam will probably be something soon. No. That sounds like a great idea.
No.
I can have him in a little box right up here, and we can all wave to him. We're like, "Hi, Steve. Hi, Steve. How are you doing today?"
Hey, that's a fast way to lose followers.
I don't know. We don't want to affect the community that we already have.
Exactly.
No. Steve's the man. Steve's the man. Good. I want you to be able to hear him a little bit. I think it adds a little bit more to the stream, having Steve in here. It's nice for me too, because, you know, it's not that I don't feel alone, because I got all you good, wonderful people here to see what's going on and everything. But at the same time, you know, having Steve over here, he's my man, handling all the stuff. You guys have any questions or anything? If I miss something, which is likely going to happen, Steve's my backup plan. Yeah, got to have a backup plan, you know, just like planning out your tubing and everything. You got to have a backup plan for what you're going to do. He does add a lot to that. But yeah, get in on that giveaway, guys. Don't forget, next Tuesday, November 3rd, we'll be doing the winner chicken dinner. All right. So yeah, no, I'm glad you guys all got signed up. That's awesome. This is an awesome giveaway. Don't miss it. I tell you to share it to your friends, but I don't think a lot of people would want to do that, because then there's less chances for them to win. But if you guys do share, we appreciate it.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. It is. It's very important to everybody. Cool. Glad you guys signed up. So right here, I got a couple of basic things on the table that we'll be going over and, talking a little bit about hard tube bending. And one of the big things with hard tube bending that I've always found, just, on a personal level, is making like a bending board or having some mandrels and stuff. Just basically kind of having a space to be able to do all your bends on. So that way it's not really, doing it like on a particular table or, something else that could get messed up. And then you just got a nice board you can beat up and, use it, do a lot of cool, crazy bends on it and, have some fun.
How much fun?
How much fun? A lot of fun. Wait, here we go. Oh,
spooky.
We just, we had to make sure that there's a barrier. We have a barrier right here, so that way we can all be safe. But no, it's great to have Steve on here, guys. Yep, there could be some ghosts involved. I mean, it's getting close to Halloween, you guys. Be ready, be careful with that stuff.
Truly, the wonderful time of the year.
It is. It's a great time of the year, and we're rounding the corner here, coming up on the holidays too. Got a lot of fun stuff coming out. I know there's a lot of new products that are going to be available here soon as well. We've been doing some fun stuff from Thermaltake, but yeah, let's get on to. Okay, so wait, you asked this question to say, what's the CL and frequency on the RAM? On this RAM, it's a 3600 speed. I believe that's CL 18 on the latency, but it's 32 gigs, 3600 speed. Spooky. Yeah, no, thanks for asking questions. Sorry, I missed it earlier. I just saw it that second time, so yeah, my bad. But yeah, no, thanks for tuning in. All right, so you want to do some bends with PETG hard tubing. That's what we're focusing on. Thermaltake sells a couple different options for you guys. And basically, we're going to be going over some tips and tricks on this stuff and having having some fun doing some different bends and kind of showing you guys a little bit about what I've done for a lot of the builds that we do here for Thermaltake USA for like our events or other video stuff that you guys would see. If you haven't already seen, I do a lot of like time-lapse builds and other stuff on our YouTube channel. So if you take a look at the Thermaltake North America YouTube channel, there's a lot of those videos up there that I've done over the years, from everything to like my Donkey Kong PC that I think I'm probably the most famous for, to some other builds that I've done in either Tower 900s, large cases and chassis that, we've taken a good bit around, and showed you guys basically the possibilities, what you can do with Thermaltake and with the cooling and stuff. And a lot of that really starts with how you want to put everything together and just kind of planning out, what you're going to need and then how you're going to connect everything together. I mean, completing that circle of your open loop and just getting everything going, forward with everything. I'll probably give out the secret code in a little bit. I'll just pop it up on the screen so that way you guys can see it and everything. But just, hang on. I'll throw it up here in a minute. So with this, I'll have a variety of stuff. And a lot of that involves tubing. And it involves inserts and a lot of other little components. So let's see here. Do I have a small piece? I guess I only have a big piece right here. So this is basically our PETG tubing. This is our 1,000 mil variant. So we basically make this tubing in two different sizes. We make it in a 500 mil and a 1,000 mil, and they come in a 4-pack, option. And with this and everything, as you can see, all of the tubes, we actually updated this a while back, but all of our tubes are now individually sleeved with plastic, so they don't get, those fun little micro scratches on them and everything. So you get a nice clean tube right out of the box. And when you're looking at a variety of tubing options, you can look at, there's different sizes that are out there. And personally, for me, I'm a big fan of the 16 mil, which is what this is. And there are some other sizes out there. There's 14s, there's 12s, there's even 10s. And a lot of that stuff looks kind of a little small for me. When I'm trying to kind of fill the system up, I don't really want like straws in there where they look a little small, especially depending on the, like the system that I would have or the space that I want to fill up. But those particular tubes can really change a lot of the, the theme and the style of your build. And then of course, you tie into some custom cooling or whatever and do some stuff. You can really have some fun things with that. Wow, there's some comments are going crazy. You'd like to buy this apron. I'd like to sell this apron actually. So I'm kind of showing this off. I got this at Computex last year. And when we opened up the TT store in Taiwan, and they had like a bending garden there. And it was really, really cool. It was like a full closed off glass roomed area that you could go in and do bending. And they're actually doing classes there. It's really, really cool. You could walk in and do like a hard tube bending class and they can show you how to do the bending and everything. It's really, really neat. And a lot of that is kind of what we want to do here and be able to show you guys from the comfort of your own home how to do some tubing. Like maybe you're looking to do a build here soon. Maybe you've already done a build and you're trying to freshen it up and you're trying to think of a new way to do some things. And maybe hopefully with this, might be able to give you guys a little bit of information and you guys can have some fun with doing hard tube bending just like we do. So this is PETG tubing. Like I said, we sell this in 500 and 1,000 mil links. The one thing that I do like to point out too is that with the 1,000 mil, you're basically looking at double the length. And then when you look at the price point of them, the 500 mil is only $10 for a 4-pack. And then you're at $14.99 or $15 for the 1,000 mil 4-pack. So when you're looking to do the tubing, the 500 is good for what it is, but you can always cut the 1,000 mil down and you basically get double the length for $5 more. So always keep that in mind. I think that's a nice little, thing to reference as far as, how we sell the tubing and what you can get. And if you're not getting in, you've never done this before and maybe you don't have all your components just yet, you're budgeting out what you're going to do, how you're going to put everything together. Get some tubing. If this is something that you want to do and you want to try it, the easiest thing that I've explained to as many people as I know, take this, buy some tubing, buy some insert so that you would have the insert that's going to go inside the tubing itself. Grab a heat gun. I mean, you're looking at basically like $10-15 for the tubing. Inserts, we sell inserts on our website. So you can buy just the inserts by themselves, or maybe you got one of our liquid cooling kits and it already has an insert in it already. But you can get the tubing, get the insert, and then get an inexpensive heat gun. I mean, this is basically a very basic heat gun, nothing too crazy. It's like 1,500 watts. I run it on the high setting. I get it from just, it's just a basic no-name type of heat gun, and it works great for me. I mean, I pay $8-9 for this. And, you know, with the ones that are out there that are expensive and everything, I can probably buy about 3 or 4 of these. And, you know, I can get a good amount of builds out of these. Sometimes they go quick, sometimes they last a while. So, I mean, it's just kind of a gamble with that. But I mean, ideally, you're looking at about 20, 30 bucks to try it. And this kind of gives you basically in you know, a particular reference to see what you can do with the bends. And we'll just do some, you know, we'll do some demonstrations here and show you guys some fun stuff. So I'd have my tubing. I just cut a piece off the 1,000 mil that I had right here, just so it's a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to have my insert. Let me go ahead and see. I'll turn the little top view on here for you guys too. That way you guys can kind of see what's going on. And then this right here is going to be my bending board that I have. And then we'll go ahead and we'll zoom in on our desk. As you can see, I'm just zooming in on the desk a little bit so you guys can kind of see a little bit closer as far as, you know, what we'd want to do. And, you know, you guys want to have a good time, right? Everybody needs a little smile every now and then, right? You guys all need like a little smile. Everybody happy? No? Yes? No? But yeah, so this is basically our silicone insert. What this will do is this is going to keep the inner diameter of your tubing. This is going to keep it so that way when you go to bend this, it's not going to fold, it's not going to crease, and it's going to keep that inner diameter to give you a nice radius as far as, you know, like what you're doing with the bends and everything. So this is key. And what's really important with this is that there are different tolerances with it. So if you're going to be buying Thermaltake tubing, make sure you get a Thermaltake insert because it's designed that way to work that way. Let me see. What are you guys saying? What are you guys saying?
But does it melt, Mike?
Does it melt? Well, it heats up to a point where it becomes pliable. But I wouldn't say melting. If it gets melting, you're going a little too long with the heat and everything. And that's some stuff that we'll talk about. I've always wanted to do custom hard tube loop, but I think I need a new case to convert my current build. And, you know, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of times when you want to do like a hard tube type of chassis build, you know, and whatever you're messing with, you have to think of the room and the space that you're going to have for it. Where's your pump reservoir going to go? Where's your radiator going to go? How is it? Are you water blocking just the CPU? Do you want to have options to water block the graphics card, say like in the future, and then kind of step it up and then kind of, you know, start with like a CPU cooling kit and then go and then maybe add GPU later, or just go full bore and just, you know, GPU cool it, you know, monoblock the motherboard. I mean, there's a lot of options that you can do as far as liquid cooling goes, but just understand every single fitting or terminal that you have is going to be just another potential option for a leak. So you want to make sure that when you're securing your tubing, when you're just, you know, you're cutting and fitting this tubing, that it's going to fit just right into the fittings that you use, because that's going to be the most important. We're going to want to make sure that we don't have any particular issues with the stuff, you know, leaking and everything after we get the bends. And a lot of that comes from people that are going to shortcut things. I mean, you get one bend and it just kind of goes just right, and you're just like, you know what, that tube's not really sitting just flat enough on the wall of the fitting, but it works and it's good for me. And then, you know, sometimes it could become a potential issue down the road. Tubing's not too bad for a price, but again, like I said, practice makes perfect, and the more you practice with it, the better you can get. So if you're looking to do this stuff, like I said, grab some tubing, grab an insert, get a heat gun, you know, very inexpensive, and try it. Just try it. See what you can do. Do a couple 90 bends. Hopefully this video, if you're watching it now or you watch it in the future, that something like this is going to help you guys out. Just, you know, getting started with your basic bends. Spiral bends can be hard, but a lot of it depends on the space you have going from A to B. As far as the spiral itself goes, it's not really all that bad. I think one of the bigger problems with doing any particular type of spiral is your endpoints, as far as where this is going to end and where that's going to end, as far as where the spirals would start, and then how that's going to connect up from one side to the other. Because sometimes you're going to do a 90 off of that spiral and then have it come over there. Sometimes you're not. It really all kind of depends on, you know, the situation with the system. And that's something you have to consider when you're planning out your build and doing, you know, all of your fun liquid cooling stuff. So I have a tube, I have an insert, and one thing that's going to be real important with this, because this insert right here is really durable, and ideally for that, it's so that way it will, one, make sure that it's not going to compress or anything when you're doing your bends, but two, to also make sure you can get this thing back out, especially when you're doing like spirals or anything with like a complex bend that's going to have like multiple bends in it, and you're just doing it all at one time. A lot of that time, you know, the insert itself can dry and get stuck in there, and it can be real tough to get out sometimes, depending on what you're going to do. So with that, what we like to always do is add a little lube.
Amazing.
Yes, yes, yes. I know, I know. But you know, the people want it. The people want it. So ideally with this, I have a cup with water. And all I'm going to be using is just some basic soap. And I'm just going to kind of put like a little couple squirts in there. You know, nothing too crazy. You don't want a soap that's really dry. You do want that, or you know, like the foam soap. Don't use the foam soap. Use a nice liquid soap, and you know, just put like a couple little drops in there. The idea of the soap with the water is that when you add in a little bit of soap, it prevents the water from evaporating as quick. So then this allows me more work time with the insert while I'm doing my bends. It looks, oh, I know. We'll get it. We'll get it straightened out here. Don't you worry. But yeah, I'm just basically mixing in a little bit of this soap here. I mean, I don't want it like super foamy because then it's just going to get all over the place and everything. But I think you guys can, I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's pretty decent. You know, it's just, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Ideally, all you just really want. I mean, you could use water, but I mean, just putting a little bit of soap in is really nothing too hard to ask. No pun intended. But you know, we got some insert, and then with this, like a nice cup is good for this. I mean, you know, you got a, you know, your favorite big gulp or whatever you want to use, something like that's going to work real well for that. And then I'm just going to basically get my insert saturated, and then I'll have my tubing like this, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to push my insert into the tubing. Yes, water cooling is very specific. It is very specific. It's sus too. It can be. You always want to make sure you lube your tube. It's very important. Come on, guys. It's nature. So there we go. So we got our insert in. We have that all set up. I'm going to take a little cleanup here just to kind of get the excess water off the outside from like my hands and everything. You know, one of the things that's really funny about doing this is that you have the cleanest hands afterwards. I mean, you're doing all these bends and everything with soapy water. Your hands are all nice and clean. So then I'm going to have my insert now installed into the tubing, as you can see right here. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to start with like a basic 90-degree bend. Now there's a couple different ways that you can do a 90-degree bend. And I'll show you guys the most straightforward way to do it using the mandrel kit that you see here. Now this is definitely a mandrel kit that we sell, of course. You can see Thermaltake everywhere on it. But we do sell this in a nice kit where you'll get the 3 mandrels plus an insert plus a cutter. And then we also even have a little deburring tool that we have here, and I'll show you guys a neat little trick in regards to that with like our RGB fittings and stuff here later too. That's great. You know, Midnight, I appreciate that a lot. I hope you guys are doing good. I mean, you know, it's Tuesday. We're hanging out, having some fun, bending some tubing. I mean, showing you guys some fun stuff. I can't say I appreciate you guys enough for being here. You know what I mean? Being here and having some fun. So I have a heat gun and I have a tube. Right? Basic stuff. I mean, these are really all the things you really need. You really don't necessarily need a bending board. You could do a 90-degree freehand. We'll show you guys that. But for the most part, let's do something more straightforward. And for that, I'm going to be using my 90-degree mandrel that's right here. Basically, I have a 90-degree bend. And I've basically fixed this onto a board for purposes that help me out a lot over the years with doing bends. And I mean, a lot of this stuff you guys can, you know, get a piece of wood and do something similar. It's real easy. The thing I like about this is it fits in my suitcase so that I can travel with it and take this all over the place when I do stuff for events. So this works really good. I've had this board for a long time. I mean, it's been through a lot of builds with me, and I think it's going to be time here soon to refresh, you know, get a new piece of wood and, you know, do some new mounting, you know, update it for Thermaltake Live. So we'll have some fun stuff planned for that here in the future too. So I'm going to take my heat gun. Now this heat gun's going to be, it's going to make some noise. You're going to have a little bit of noise from this. And it's something you're going to have to deal with. Make sure my chairs, everything's good.
It's time to warm it up.
It's time to, yeah, you know. And, you know, with my insert, I want to make sure that I'm also not going to be melting my camera and everything. But I'll have my heat gun. Most heat guns will have the ability to stand up vertical like this. And I use this a lot for a lot of simplistic bends like 90s and so on, because I'm just looking to get that small little surface. I don't want to heat too much of it because then you're going to make a really long 90 and it's actually not going to work well in the mandrels. There's a specific little gap that you want to try to keep. And a lot of that is because of you don't want to drift when you're moving the tubing. Look at the tubing where it is, and sometimes, or well, most of the time, I would say, I always find something that I can pinpoint on here. If it's a bubble or it's like a little thing that just kind of gives me a little indication of where I am. And then as I'm heating this, you'll start to see the tubing become pliable. And then you also start to see that area of the tube itself basically kind of just change color. Like this little part right here will start changing a little bit of colors. And with the, the difference of not drifting too far left and right, you also have to worry about up and down. So a lot of times you don't want to be too close to the heat gun where this thing's going to heat this too fast. And then what that's going to do is make little bubbles on the tubing. Basically, it kind of just heats up too quick, too fast. So there is a proper distance that you want to keep it from, but you don't want to keep it like up here. You want to have it basically kind of in the middle. And like I said, practice makes perfect. Your heat gun is going to be different than my heat gun most of the time, unless you got the exact same one. And, just getting the technique down and doing the bends and everything, it's just something you have to mess around with. No, you did not miss the giveaway. The giveaway is still going on through the rest of the week. Go ahead and we have a link, I believe, down below, or it's in the chat here. We can throw up the giveaway and go ahead and sign up for that, man. We got this PC we're giving away, baby. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to warm up our heat gun. You guys will probably be able to hear the heat gun a little bit. And then I'm going to take my tube and we're just going to do a bend basically about right here. So all I'm going to be doing is just slowly rotating the tubing, making sure that I'm not drifting too far left or right, as well as making sure I'm not going too close to the heat gun itself. Yeah, we got 7 days left on that giveaway, guys. Jump in there. This is probably going to take about 20 seconds or so for this kind of a space. And I'm already starting to see this become a little bit more pliable. It's already starting to flex on me. You guys see? See how it's kind of just like getting a little wiggly? We'll just keep going here. Because I took it away from the heat gun, of course. And I'm just making sure I keep a nice distance from it, but it's not also going to take me a million years to get this guy warmed up. I think we're going there pretty good. Shut our heat gun off. You probably have about 10 seconds, maybe a little bit less, to be able to keep this thing active before it starts to cool. And I'll go ahead and I've put it here in my mandrel, as you can see, and I'm just kind of holding it here in position, putting pressure on both of the ends from on this side and on this side of the mandrel itself. So that way I'm actually not touching the hot part, so I'm not really burning, out of my hands. But it's gonna get warm. And you're gonna deal with a little bit of heat. It happens. Oh, I got some great stuff to show you for like how I mark the pipe and how I cut it and everything. There's a couple different tricks that I'll do, but I'll get to that. Don't worry. Thanks for reminding me. I wish I had a heat gun that had a silencer. I wish I had a quieter one. But heat guns are heat guns. I mean, it does the job. They have like the little attachments that you can put on there and everything that kind of flattens out and makes it more focused as far as how the heat goes. But I honestly like that ring surface that's right there because what it's going to do is it's perfect. It's like an inch and a quarter in diameter, and it's basically about the exact size that I would want for the space to do like a 90 like this. So then here's basically your 90. Now, with the 90, what I'm trying to do is make sure I got a nice curvature going here on the inside. I don't have a fold. I don't have a bend. I don't have anything that's going to give me like a weird OCD kind of scenario that I'm going to have with the bend. And of course, you're going to want that bend to be nice and straight. And sometimes, the mandrel for the most part will do its job. It's going to do the work for you as far as giving you a nice 90-degree radius every time. I mean, as long as you heat and you apply and you've done this, you do this a couple of times, you can make several duplicates of these that you can use then to cut and make them shorter, to cut and fit, to get it to fit into where you're going to go. Like, for example, if I had a tube simple like this, this would be an end where this could go into like my distro plate. That's going to go into the back of the case. And this is going to come out and over like it is. And then say like go into like my GPU. And this would be like the start of my run coming off of a distro plate. Or say even something like the 350p that I just built. That one was pretty straightforward with just like a nice straight 90, comes out over straight into the GPU. And a lot of times with this, you don't need to worry about how long this has to be or how long this has to be as long as it's long enough. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people will get frustrated with trying to do the first bend to the exact length that they would need, especially going inward into the case versus something where you're going across and you're trying to keep it level. You can always chip away at this. You know, you can always cut a little piece off, test fit it, cut a little piece off, test fit it, get that perfect fitment that you're going to have for the distance that you would want going inward, because trying to bend it perfect the first time, I mean, it's fun. And yeah, you can go out and do that stuff if you'd like, but the easier way to go is to basically bend it a little bit longer than you need and then just cut it to fit. It makes it a lot easier for what you're doing. Why do you get, oh. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Oh, what's up? We got a question. What's up? So right now, I mean, it's actually something I've wanted to, bring up to my management. Mostly because for what we've been doing with LCGS and our custom liquid cooled gaming systems, the inserts that we have are basically, a foot long. And with those, we know that there's people out there that, per se, want a longer length, something like this. And we've been talking about doing an option where we basically sell this by the foot. And I think a good thing to kind of test this out is to, be able to see if we can do some type of program for you guys. So that way, if you're looking to do like a hard tube build and you've got the components, but you're running low on inserts, I want to help you out. I want to see what I can do to help you out. I mean, I got this stuff. I get a good piece of this. I mean, I can have something like this where I would have you'd want to get like, a couple of feet of this. And then once you would have this, you could cut it into, a variety of little sizes for different things that you'd want to do. And then you can have different pieces. You kind of build up a collection is more or less what I've done over the years, is to have different fitments for different sizes. And a lot of that comes into the way I do most of my bends and bring it up. But if this is something you guys would be interested in as far as getting, longer pieces of inserts and everything, shoot us a message and we'll definitely see what we can do to help you out. Because I got a good amount of this stuff. But at the moment, we're only selling it basically in, just pre-cut pieces. But I want to see what I can do to offer you guys more here, bring it on the stream, bring it on the channel. You guys got a sick build and you need a little bit more help here from Thermaltake. I want to help you out. I definitely want to help you guys out. And yeah, I mean, the other thing too is, I mean, ideally all you really need is a 1,000 mil insert, or an insert that's going to fit the full 1,000 mil tubing, because more or less, since we don't really sell anything tube-wise that's longer, it's really kind of, a waste for the most part. You don't really need too much longer at that point. I mean, it's kind of just, you're going to cut it up, I would think. I mean, I would, as far as different pieces. But it's nice to have a nice long piece for doing spirals and other stuff that's going to take up a lot of length of your tubing that's going to get compacted real quick, as far as what you do. But yeah, I mean, this is stream number 4. It's definitely some stuff. I have a lot of things on my mind that I want to do. And, with Thermaltake, support, I mean, they're so amazing. And I want to be able to try to get some of these programs set up for you guys so we can do some more fun stuff with this. And then at the same time, be able to get you guys, more options, to do cooler things with the tubing, because it's what I'm all about. I can't get enough of this. I mean, when we started the Pacific Series launch and everything, I mean, I was hooked. I was hooked. I'm not going to lie. This stuff was just so much fun. And I mean, nice and durable too. You really don't have too many issues with this. And I mean, now that this has been cooled for a little bit, it's pretty solid. It's really not going to, it's not going to crack on you. It's not going to do anything that, unless you're really doing some extensive treatments to it and everything to do stuff like that. But I would think that you guys are probably having a burning question right now, which is, how am I going to get this insert out? Now, a lot of people like to have like the insert kind of just hanging out and dingling here on the side so you can just grab it and pull it out. I mean, that's one way to do it. It kind of bothers me because it's kind of flopping around a little bit and everything. And a lot of times when I'm doing my fitment and everything, I'm test fitting this in here. So I want to actually be able to test this with the insert in. And I'll show you guys a little bit more about that. But a simple trick that I'll do is with the insert, I'll just get like a, like a drywall screw, just a basic little drywall screw like this. And I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to screw it right into the insert, kind of like you're pulling the cork out of a wine bottle. And then this will allow me to just pull the insert just out, just like that. That makes it real easy. And then the advantage of this is that it allows me to do test fitting into the actual fitting itself, and then making sure everything's going good before I actually pull my insert out. Because a lot of times, once you take this insert out, it's not the same trying to put it back in now that you have the bend. I mean, it's definitely possible, but if you're dealing with multiple bends and you're doing something fairly complex, that fitment option and then being able to remove the insert really saves me a lot of time and a lot of tubing too, so I don't have a lot of waste. Let me see. Dude, hey, what's up, guys? Yeah. No, welcome. So 90-degree bend. This is one way to do it off the mandrel. Let's go ahead and I'll just take this guy off. Now, this is another cool little tool that I picked up at the hardware store. It's basically like a standard pipe cutter with a crazy blade on it. And it works real well for just kind of trimming it short enough, maybe not precise. I like to use like just a regular saw with like a miter box and everything that you get at a hardware store, because that thing will allow me to cut like an 1/8 inch off. So I just get just a perfect spacing with that. But for the basic beginnings of your bends and just trying to get that, get the length close enough, a nice little pipe cutter like this works real well. And it's just a quick and easy way to just kind of chop a little bit off, and then you can kind of get a little bit closer to doing that final test fit. Yeah, basic PVC cutter. They make a variety of them out there. Some work real well, some don't. So, take a look at what options you can pick up and everything with that. And, speaking of that, I also want to kind of show you guys here too, the wall of the tubing that we use. We use a really thick walled tube, and there's a good reason for that. A lot of this is because it allows me to reactivate the tubing and do some simple adjustments with it. It takes a little bit longer to heat up, but then to me, I get better bends out of this with a thicker walled tubing because there's just more material there. And with that, I get, it's still really nice and rigid, and it allows me to reactivate things where I could take a 90-degree bend, I could heat it back up and do a slight adjustment to it. If it's left to the right, up or down. You can't bend a 90 and then bend it back the other way. I mean, that's, there are some limitations, of course, with doing the hard tubing and everything. But for the most part, you have a lot of fun with doing stuff like this. Now, if I want to do, say, let me get my water down here. My water. Yep, I definitely have modded my house as well, so I have plenty of those drywall screws laying around. You guys probably do too. And I mean, like I said, it's just fun stuff that you got laying around the house. DIY, baby, DIY. All right. Now we've got, and then this is, yeah. So basically now we're gonna do another 90, but we're gonna do a freehand 90 now. And I want to show you guys something else too. All right, so one thing that I like to do when I'm doing particular bends is I'll get a rag like this and I'll get it nice and wet. Ideally, so I can use this to cool the tubing as I'm getting the bend where I want it to be. And I really want it to, basically get hard again, when I'm bending it. So what we like to, and it makes it real easy. So that way I can just I don't have to sit there and hold it for like 20, 30 seconds. Cause a lot of times it takes a lot more build time up, as well as, you're sitting there having to hold it and everything like that. And it's just kind of like, is this cool yet? I see people blowing on it, like, oh yeah, it's making it better. It's just kind of funny to do that too, What does it say? TT needs to make a PCI 1X extension cable. Okay. Thanks for the feedback. All right. So you can do a 90-degree a lot of different ways. I like to basically hold this vertical like this. Make sure I'm not burning my camera. And then again, like I said, I'm heating up an area. I'm not drifting left or right. And I'm making sure that I'm not keeping the tube too close to the heat gun, because I want it to heat it up, but I don't want it to heat it up too fast. But you also don't want it, you don't want it to take forever to do it either. And I'm starting, and the thing too is that like as I turn this around and I start seeing it activate, I can see a little bit of difference in the actual insert itself. It's just the way the smearing goes, or just how like on the inside of the tube, you can just see these little things with it. So I got some good flexibility there with that. Now, if you want to do a 90-degree bend and you want to do it where the 90 is a little bit more, I would say, rounded. Let me see if I can do this and see it at the same time. See how I have this and I can kind of push this, or I'll take my board. And then what this is going to allow me to do is do more of like a curved type of bend. This is going to give me more of a like a wider radius on my 90, because sometimes that can come in handy for what you're going to be doing then after that. Like say you're going to be doing a 90 off of your CPU block, but then from there it's going to, you know, go a different direction, and you want to have a different type of angle to it. So I can sit there and I can bend the 90 and I can do different things. I can, as it cools like this, I can then get some more, I can apply more. Oh, see, I got this one. This one actually got a little too hot. So this one actually kind of warped on me. So see how this warped on me? See the little, now a lot of that was probably because as I was bending this, I was talking at the same time, and I'm trying to figure out how to do both of these. But either way, this is a good thing to point out, is that if I'm going to get like a bubble or a blemish, like you can see, I don't know if you guys can see this blemish very well, but there's a blemish right here that came up on the tubing. And a lot of times with that, you're pretty much done. I mean, you're going to get this stuff. It's going to happen like this. Sometimes you can get a little bit of a wrinkle in it. And ideally, you just kind of move forward with it. I mean, sometimes with it too, another thing that I'll do is if the 90-degree bend was there, or say it's like maybe like the second or third bend that you're doing on the actual tube itself, don't just give up on the tube. Like if you're gonna do like I just did, but here I'll show you what I mean. But if you take the insert and we go right back in here. Oh, whoop. Because I cut that side with the tool, so it kind of is in here. All right. Well, that's a pretty good length, huh? I just like eyeball cut that. All right. Questions or anything? What's that tube cutter called? It's just a PVC cutter. This one in particular here, I got it at a hardware store. Pretty beefy though, you know. Chop. But what I like about it is it just gives a nice clean cut. The only thing that I don't like about it is when it does cut it, the way it cuts on the end of the tube and everything. The insert, as far as putting the insert back in, can be a little bit more difficult cutting it with that versus like cutting it with a saw. And I'll show you guys that in a minute. Let me redeem myself on this. Yeah, sometimes, you know, I'll just kind of hold my finger here on the end, like you can see here. Oh. Bring this over here. Sorry, guys. Trying to make sure you guys can see this too. Yep, moving up from the consoles, baby. You could water cool your new PS5 just the same. All right. Get a little, I don't want to go too much. I think what I did was I went a little too much because I ended up talking a lot. You guys can kind of see. So then what I'll do is I'll use my bending board to get an idea of the angle that I want it to be at, because this is a nice, I cut this square, so then I'll have a nice square to this, but this is going to give me a different look for a 90, where I'm still going to get like that same kind of 90, but it's going to be like a longer 90, or it's just going to have a wider radius on it. And then, I mean, it's still pliable. It's still pliable. And that's where I say, like, coming in, you know, with having something where if I take my hand, I can put my hand on this part to keep it straight and put that part to keep it straight. And then I'll just take my wet rag here to kind of cool it a little bit. It doesn't take much. And then you can just kind of eyeball up what you're going to do. So that way you can do, for example, like 2 different 90s. Where you're going to have, this is going to have more of a curvature to it, where this is going to be more of a straight, direct, like our sharper turn 90 from the mandrel. But then this is going to give you like a different type of look to it. And then you can use this for a lot of different things if you want something that's going to be a little bit more rounded. And then a lot of that's going to have to do with, where is this going? I mean, is this a tube that's going, for example, this way horizontally, or are you doing something more vertically with it and it's like a bottom port, or like, say you're like doing a top part like this and you've got a 90-degree fitting that's coming over here, and you just want it to have more of like a teardrop type of effect versus having more of a straight, direct, squared type of 90-degree bend. So you can do a lot of variety of different options with the 90 degrees. And, even with something like this, like say I bent this 90 and, it's not exactly where I wanted it to be. I mean, it's cooled off enough where it's rigid, but at the same time, it's still a little bit warm. And if I just kind of kiss it with the heat again, I can get the flexibility back just like that, just like that. And I can make a subtle adjustment to it. I can go back in here with this. And I mean, I can't bend it the other way, but then now I can go back in here and I can bend a 90 just like so. And if it's something where you're dealing with not necessarily like just the up and down, but the left and right, you know what I mean? Like you're not just talking about how flat this is going to be this way, but as far as turning it one side to the other, you want to make sure that that angle is going to be straight, not just one way, but both ways when you think about it. Another reason why I like to use a board is because it gives me a nice flat surface. I'm pushing down on the tube on both sides. So that way, once I know I have my radius here with the 90, I'm also making sure that the tube itself is flat and it's not like wobbling. You know what I mean? Because I bent the 90 like this, but I didn't consider this way as well. And then that could give me something where it's kind of teeter-tottering, I guess you would say, on the table, because I didn't do the 90 directly, on a flat surface like that. So something like this really helps out with a lot of that. Let me see. Questions. God, you guys have been asking a lot of stuff. Yeah, we do good. But yeah, this is a 90-degree bend on a softer type of teardrop, where this is more of a direct 90-degree bend that you would have going in. Now, when you want to do that second 90 degree, say you want to do something where you're going to be connecting like A to B, and you're trying to figure out what that distance is going to be from one way to the other. This is what I was talking about just a minute ago, as far as, when you make a mistake with something. So for example, if this might have not been exactly where I wanted it to be, but I also have to do the same thing on the other side, keep using it, because ideally what this is going to be for you is a template for the next time. So if I'm going to be doing, say, like a particular distance from like a radiator to a block, or from like a distro plate to a CPU block, and I want to do like that double 90 degree, but I don't know what, that distance is from one to the other, you can use this several times to try to figure out what that distance is. So once you basically have your test fit piece, say it did go wrong, you can still use that piece to find your dimension. And then once you have that dimension there, you can use that for the new piece, and it's a lot easier that way. So like if I'm going to go, say we heat this up, we're going to do another 90-degree bend. We'll take this, put this on the board, do another 90-degree bend like right here, right? What does that look like, Now, a lot of this times too, you can see this. At least I hope you can see this, but like I can push this down and up, and I can kind of play with how I want that particular radius to be. Sometimes you're going to have it where one connection is going to be longer than the other, where you're going to have to deal with, one side going deeper into the case, and then the other side needs to be more shallow because it's, going into a component, and you're trying to just get it just right where you want to be. And then say you have something like this where you get like a nice little shape, and this is what's going to go into the two systems that are going to connect up, from A to B on there. But when you tested it out and you put this in the first time, you realize this guy could have been here or should have been here. And it was just a little bit, you bent it too long. It happens. So one thing that's, an easier way to do this, to kind of, use what you have, is I can take this same piece. I mean, granted, this looks pretty good, but I mean, we're just kind of playing around right now with these bends, but I'll go back in here and I'll heat this up. But instead of heating the same area where I'm heating here, I'm heating closer to this side of the tubing. because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to pull it. So then as I get this a little bit hotter, I can take this now and I can kind of pull it a little bit. And the idea is not that this is going to be the tubing I'm going to use in the build, but this is going to be the tubing that's going to get me one step closer to the final one that I'm going to want to use. So I can use, I can even use my mandrel kit right here to kind of brace the back of the tubing, and then we can stretch this. And we can kind of take this surface like this and we can stretch it longer. It might not look the best for what particular you're going to do, because you're not going to get that nice radius like you did it like the first time. But what this is going to do is this is going to help you determine what your A and B is going to be, as far as, how long you're going to be from one side to the other, how long this middle piece has to be. And then this is going to be something where I can just make this and like kind of pull it. And now the length of this side is a lot longer than it was comparable to this side. And now I can take this piece and I can fit it in perfectly. Now that I know that this particularly fits, I can take this and then use this as like a template for the next piece that I'm going to make, so that I can get the bend right where I want it to be. And you can use this a lot. This stuff, like I said, you can reactivate this to rebend it a little bit more so that you can get, a little bit closer to the edge. Or if I had to do some more stuff, if I wanted to bend this shorter, I'm going to be heating here and here and here and going further with it that way so that I can make it. It's going to start looking ugly the more you do it. But ideally, the whole point of this is to make sure that you can figure out what that spacing is going to be from this side to this side going in. Yes, fluids are important. Another trick too that I can do is I can just take another little piece of insert, kind of push it in here. The screw technique thing works real well for me though. Because then see, you get like that little piece that's going to come out. Not a little piece, but we'll just go this way. Look at that. And then see what this advantage does for me here is that now I was able to heat and bend, retest, heat, bend, retest, heat, bend, retest, and figure out what that dimension is going to be before I actually take the insert out. And, I'm able to actually put this onto the fittings. This is not something where I'm setting this up against, the component block and everything. I'm going to use the actual fittings on here to do it. And with that, I want to introduce our C-Pro fittings, which I have right here on one of our water blocks, and show you guys another cool little trick with the C-Pros and with the tubing. This is probably one of the biggest things that I do on a custom type of bend level, where I'm just doing it all freehand, or I'm just trying to save some time for what I have, getting everything in there and then actually getting it mounted and then being able to make sure that that tubing is going to be just straight. So I can take, let me see, I'm going to cut this guy a little bit shorter. Questions though, you guys have questions? Questions. So far what I've talked about. Mm-hmm. All right. So here, okay, so we got this. Let's see. We had a decent length there. This is a little bit longer. Let's go with something a little bit shorter. Yeah, this will work. And like I said, if you get a couple pieces of insert, it can really go a long way to help you with doing a lot of bends. Granted, I know people don't do systems all the time. So, most of the time it's a one and done. Once you got it done, you're good to go. You're not building systems, right? But at the same time, you can always add more tools to your toolbox. So now that I have a piece of tube like this, what I want to do is, say for example, these are my base plates of my C-Pro fittings. So these are the base plates that I have of the C-Pros, and then these are basically my compression sleeves with my O-rings. Now, to give a little shout out to our wonderful little C-Pro friends here, this is a 4 O-ring solution. And what this means is that you get an O-ring on the base plate, you get 2 O-rings on the inside of this little collar sleeve, looks like a little ring, and then another 4th O-ring to go with the compression. I would definitely say the multi-tier O-rings are great for preventing leaks. We had one of the earlier solutions with this was the M Pros, and they were short one extra O-ring. They were basically like they were a 3 O-ring solution, and that single O-ring on the inside didn't really kind of keep it as secure as I would say I wanted it to be. So I gave some feedback on that, and we went back and did an extra O-ring, and then the C Pros came, and these have been great. I mean, the tubing and everything, it's almost like I can be a lot more laid back on this, and for the most part, I really don't have too many leak issues. It's great. Oh, nice, dude. Eddie, dude, that's great, man. Your system will be here soon, and I hope you get it, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it. That's awesome. That's awesome. Do I make Steve clean up after myself? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Don't lie.
It's mandatory, actually. After I'm done, I just walk away, and he has to clean everything up. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'd never do that to my buddy Steve. He makes me do it all. What are you talking about? He just sits over there, and has a good time and hangs out and talks to you guys. He's got the chill job, not me. So with the C Pro fittings, I'm going to put the compression sleeve on. Then I'm going to throw the O-ring over the top, because this is that O-ring that's going to go between the compression sleeve and my little mid plate here. And then this guy is going to go right on the edge. I mean, that's going to be right there on the edge of the tube. So it gives it's a flat, it's a nice flat surface. You know what I mean? And then once I have these set up here, these are going to be connecting to my components, right? But what I want to do is, say I want to do something fun with this, and I don't want to do particularly just like a boring 90 to 90 like I did before, and I want to do something a little bit more extravagant, and I want to connect A to B. So I'll leave the fittings, as far as this part is, right on the tubing. And then I'll go ahead and I'll start heating up the tubing itself. And then this will allow me to basically connect one in and then do my bend to connect the other one in. And then while these two are already connected, then it will give me a little bit of playtime here with what I'm doing in the middle to do something fun. Like if I'm going to do a loop-de-loop, or I'm going to do a spiral, or how I'm going to bring everything in. There's a lot of fun little things that you can do. So say, for example, I have my CPU block. I'll put my base plate in here. Now with these base plates, this is basically, we'll screw in as a G1/4. And then we even include this cool little wrench that we throw in the box. And then you use that for the centerpiece here. I mean, it basically fits a dime. You could put a dime in there, but we throw this in the box with the fittings anyways, so it's always best to use this. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep this nice and secure, because there is another O-ring there, of course, for the G1/4 as far as the base plate goes in a way. So it's technically 5, but we're just basically talking about that. Oh, my GoPro. I'll have to see what's going on. So say I have something like that. All right. And then I have this right here. Now, a different way that I can do my bending is, instead of having the heat gun up and I'm sitting here and I'm going back and forth like this, trying to heat up like a whole piece of tube, I'll actually use the board for an advantage to be able to help rebound the heat. And it will allow me to do a better way heating it this way, going back and forth, so that I can get a larger piece of tubing pliable for, a good bit. But you have to be careful with it. And it does take a little bit longer. It definitely does take a little bit longer. I'm looking at getting my own PC eventually. Would you recommend getting it water cooled, even on a budget? The one thing I would say with, starting out with a full PC is get the PC first. If it's something where it's a budget, spread your budget out. Build the system, get everything up going. Maybe you start with an AIO solution, or even an air cooler for that matter, and you want to go eventually to DIY LCS. Always consider your case. Your case is your foundation for what you're going to put in there. So if you're looking to want to go to it down the road without buying a new case for it from what you have already or what you're planning to buy today, make sure that you're going to have the room to do what you want to do in the future. I think that's probably one of the most frustrating things I run into, is when I have like a system and then I want to water cool it, but it doesn't have a particular mount for my pump, or it doesn't have the proper fitment that I want to do for how I want my radiator and my pump to sit, and just kind of getting all that spacing and stuff figured out. So something to think about for the future as far as what you would do. And then this would allow you then to stretch your budget out a little bit more, where you could get your main components, get a system up and running. And then you can move forward with, saving up a little bit here, and then getting your pump and your CPU block and your radiator. And then maybe you start out with CPU cooling. And then a couple months down the road, you grab a GPU block. grab a couple extra fittings, some extra tubing, and you can just incorporate that into your current existing DIY LCS build. Because I mean, if you're running a D5 pump, you're going to have enough pressure to be able to, push the coolant through multiple components. So consider a lot of that when you're going to purchase your first build. If it's something you want to start out simple, try to not beat yourself up by thinking that you should have got this or you should have got that, and just kind of budget it out as best you can. A lot of options as far as what you can do. I know. Rest in peace, SLI. Rest in peace. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be heating a larger area of this. And as you can see, I'm going back and forth in a nice slow formation. And I'm also letting the tube itself rotate back and forth. And I'm using this to the advantage on the board because the board's allowing me to let this roll. The other thing too is the tube's not even touching the wood because it's supported by the fittings. And I'll start to see the tube activate because the tube, once it's ready, is actually going to be sitting on the wood when it becomes pliable. So I want to make sure I'm just kind of moving this back and forth. The other thing I like about this too is that with this wood board, the heat's bouncing off the bottom. So it's actually kind of coming back up. It's radiating the heat, and it just, I don't know. This works really well for me as far as if I want to get a larger area where I'm looking at like 4 to 8 inches of tube length that I want to basically warm up here. Starting to get there, starting to get there. Yeah, this takes a little bit longer as far as what you're doing. You'll start to see the tube droop a little bit and kind of come down to where the wood is and start to see a little bit of, it's starting to flex a little bit, but we still got a little bit more to go. But again, making sure you keep that proper distance off of the heat gun to the tube, that distance there is so important, and keep it moving. Always keep it moving. Don't keep that thing going one particular distance. You want to make sure you keep that moving so that you get some nice flexibility with this. Because see, now I got some nice bends going on here with this. And this is going to allow me to do some stuff with a larger piece of tubing where it's almost going to be like a soft tube at this point. Oh, losing my heat time. But yeah, now that I have this, I mean, I have lots of flexibility with this. This is a hard piece of hard tubing. And then as I'm going, because this part right here that I'm actually touching is for the most part cool. And then this will allow me to secure one piece in and then take the other piece and be able to secure it to my other component as far as where I'm going to go with this or how I'm going to connect it up. If I wanted to do something where I want to do like a crazy spiral, or I want to do something interesting where I have like, going in from one component to the other, this is going to allow me to get like that nice little radius that I'm going to do. You get that nice curve right in there. And a lot of that all has to deal with how well you spread that heat evenly across the tubing once it becomes activated. And then I can do something like this. And then say, for example, the tube went further along that way. It's connecting into a component or other things. Because we're going to do hard tube full systems. We're going to do full systems and everything. But I really think I wanted to cover a lot of the basis on a lot of this stuff. So that way you can get those nice radiuses in here and be able to get something that you're going to be proud of. And then going back to like what I was saying about the wet rag, now that I have something like this, is a large area that's going to heat. It's going to take me a while to hold this and let the whole thing cool. And then now I can just kind of go over it like this with a damp rag. And this is going to already start cooling this almost instantly. And then there you go. And then now I have like a cool little loop-de-loop kind of thing that we can set up like that. And the best part about something like this, especially when you're doing these nice big radiuses, I mean, it makes it real easy. I mean, you still have a little bit of pliability left with it, but check this out. I can just go back with my heat gun and I can just kind of cover in the edges, going back and forth with this. And all I'm doing is just reactivating this tubing. Like say, for example, you didn't have enough time or that fitting was real troublesome to get in there. Now I can go right back and I can heat this up and look at this. Look at this guy. It's coming back alive here, guys. Say, for example, my radius wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be, or my loop was too big, or my loop was too small. I can go right back in here, reactivate this, and then I can go back in and then I can maybe do, I could do something different. Like I could come up and say I could spin over and do something crazy like that. And then I can have like an in and an out. Say like this is going to be my GPU connection. This is going to my CPU. And now I got this cool little like side spin thing. And I could do something like this. The best part about it with this way is now I can screw this into my graphics card and I don't have to hold this anymore. And then once this is secured into the graphics card, I'm sitting here playing with this and molding this and getting that shape that I want and getting that nice tabletop spin or rotate, whatever you want to call it, and just get that nice little, get that radius that I want on here. You know, say if you want to do something like this, and it's a little bit different. And then this is going to be rigid. And then I'll just take my cloth like this, pull this guy off. And then this is going to give me like a cool little different effect with it. And then I can always go back and play with this. If this is not perfectly straight or this drops down and everything, a lot of that's going to have to do with how it's going to be connected. Like again, like if I connected this to my GPU, I don't have to hold this part anymore. Where like if I was just doing the tubing with non-C-Pro fittings, I'm going to have to basically not have, I'm just going to have just that G1/4 hole here. And I'm just going to be kind of putting the tubing up there. And I'm holding this here and I'm holding that there. How are you going to be able to do these bends in between and be able to kind of get that shape that you want? I mean, even as it's cooling, right? Even as this stuff is cooling, you're going to want to try to get that shape just right and get that lined up so that way you got a nice cool connection going from A to B and everything. So yeah, it's you know, it's some fun little things. And this is another fun little trick. So as you guys probably saw as I was doing this, I'd run into these issues. This little guy moving all over the place, driving me nuts, trying to connect it up. It's down here and I'm like, you know, and you're dealing with seconds of time while this is still activated to be able to get that going in there. Grab yourself some, this is like some like pinstriping tape. You can get some of this little pinstripe tape like this. And I'll take this little piece of tape, I'll put my compression sleeve right there, and then I'll just take this guy and I'll put it right there in the end, and then look at that. Now it's not in my face. Now it's not sliding down here. I'm worried about cutting or scoring my tubing, for example, and you know, scoring the tubing on this. This thing's right here on the end. And I can do the same thing on the other end too, especially if I'm doing a larger run and I'm doing something with like a corkscrew thing. Those things can kind of slide around and you're like trying to get them all back to one to the other, or it's, you know, this is going up into a radiator, for example. Like if I had, you know, my CPU block and we're kind of doing the little radiator loop-de-loop thing, and I'm going to connect this up. This guy just keeps falling. It keeps falling. It keeps falling. It just drives me nuts, man. Little simple little piece of tape like that makes a lot, huge change for me. Huge change for me. Oh, I know. I think before the swirl though, I need to throw the code up. You guys have been waiting. So let's go ahead and we're gonna put up the secret code. Let me see if that, you have a segue.
Yeah.
I want to write it.
380.
Uh-huh.
And was unfamiliar with what it's all about.
Oh, okay. Did I miss a question somewhere? Oh my God. Sorry about that. So the question was in regards to our new LCGS systems, right? Mm-hmm. So if you guys are looking into doing either hard tubing or you're looking to purchase a system for hard tubing, we have a new department called LCGS. And oh, by the way, secret code down below, game with LCGS, my bad. Game with LCGS down below. That's the secret code for today. I'll leave that up. And that's going to be your entry for the Halloween PC giveaway. This guy right here, baby. So that's one more entry. If you've already entered in for that, you don't have to do it again. It's a one-time thing, but we are throwing the codes up for all the streams. So that way, if you're tuning in today, you haven't seen or heard about our giveaway, then you'll have that option there to get one more entry. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll leave that up and everything. So we have a new View 380, which, as you guys can probably think from the name, has an RTX 3080 graphics card in it. It is now on Amazon, as well as our thermaltakeusa.com store. And we have that up. We're also doing, I know from the first stream, we had the new little mini helicopter, the AH T200, and we've made an AH 380 as well. And that SKU is another RTX 3080. And if you didn't think that was enough, we're doing also 3090 flavors as well. So we're going to have two different price points, basically two different systems with a little bit of change on the inside. But overall case, View 51 and our AHT 200, we have two new SKUs that are going up. I know the View 380 is already active, and I believe it's already sold out. Wow. I mean, it was crazy how that went. But the AHT or the AH380, our little mini helicopter build, is going to be awesome. And that should be in stock soon. So if you guys haven't seen anything, that you have to check that out. Yeah, we also have a pink version of the AHT200 coming as well. It will be limited quantities. And I'm thinking we'll definitely have it before the holidays. But I'm trying to get an actual ETA on it as far as when it's coming over. Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. I mean, I've never seen us do like a pink build before, and that's going to be pretty interesting. I'd really like to do something with that, that radical color. That'd be some fun stuff. The mini helicopter build we have is called the AH380. It's an LCGS custom liquid cooled system, and that's running an RTX 3080 inside. So, you know, if you haven't had a chance to get that 3080, or you're kind of stressing over building the system and trying to get the card at the same time, let LCGS save the time for you, and you can just get both in at the same time. Okay, so you're doing some bends, playing around with some stuff. And I mean, again, even with this, as far as, you know, what I did here, because of the fact that my bends were not very, I guess, like rigid, I mean, even with, say, something like this, I can go back and I can reheat this and be able to do it again and again and again. And it makes it a lot easier for people that are probably starting out with doing hard tubing, and you're having the stress of like, how do I do this 90, going into a 90 into something else. Something like this can save you a lot of time and give you a nice bit of freedom to play around and do some custom liquid cooling. And you can do some really interesting swirls, loops, and so on, and have a lot of fun with it. And yeah, it gives us something neat. I mean, ideally, once you get this done and you have it, you can roll with this for a little bit. You get bored of it, you can always just change out your tubing and do a completely different look to it. I mean, I've even sanded this tubing, like wet sanded it to give it like a frosted, soft look, so you can kind of play around with that. Or if you go to change your coolant color and you want to change that one tube that was bugging you the whole time, you got those kind of options to be able to do that stuff. And let's go ahead and make sure we get our insert back out. You don't want to leave this insert in, especially like overnight. Ideally, with what I would have, I'd want to try to get this out as quick as I can. I'm just going to cheat and use my Sharpie to pull that guy out. But then you would have like a bend like this, and then say this is like a particular bend that you would have going into one setup, and you want to maybe change it, you can always, you know, make another one. It's not really, you know, it's not too bad. Let's get a new piece out of here. Let's get a new piece out. New piece on the table. All right, this is gonna be a fun one to show. So yeah, the tape's a real cool feature. The using the screw to get the inserts in and out when you're using those fittings to be able to get that fitment and kind of test it and play around with it, especially when you're dealing with a hands-free option where I can sit there and manipulate the tubing to just kind of line it up, or if I'm doing a loop or a swirl or whatever, it allows me to just kind of get that radius just right. And if it kind of cools too fast on you, you can always take the heat gun and just reactivate it right there in the system. Just be careful that you're not, you know, nuking your other components at the same time. Try to make sure that you don't have your tubing, you know, you're not concentrating your area on something where you're, you know, hitting a motherboard component, you know, stuff like that. Now, for something that I'm going to do a little bit more of a fine type of cut with, I'm going to have having some GoPro issues today. Sorry, guys. So I'm going to be able to use this is basic miter box, miter saw. Not expensive at all. And then what this is going to allow me to do is be able to get something more defined as far as how I'm cutting this. And I'm just going slow because I'm doing this up on the table. I usually do this on the floor. Sacrificing for you guys. But then I'll cut a piece like this. And what this is going to do is it's going to leave, you're going to get a little bit of extras on the tubing, a little bit of extras here on the tubing. And a lot of that stuff you can kind of pick off and just kind of get that out. Another thing that I'll do a lot too is I'll just use like a 400 grit wet sandpaper, and I'll just kind of just sand the edges of this just to kind of get it nice and smooth so it's not rigid, especially if you're using like an older fitting that just kind of pushes in. You don't want this edge to be sharp or it's going to be cutting that O-ring, especially if you're going to test fit it in and out, in and out, in and out. So, you know, you want to make sure this is nice and smooth. And with that, I like to just use some just basic sandpaper. You know, 400 wet dry works real great for me. And I don't necessarily have to get it wet, but, you know, it just gives it a nice smooth edge to it. As far as what I was going to do. So actually this will be my one piece that I have. Okay, we'll save this one for another thing because I want to do something different. Gosh, look at the mess I made. So how are you guys all doing? Everybody good? Everybody good? You guys like, is this stuff? Is this some fun stuff? Trying to see how I can do this the best that I can on camera for you guys. I want a good piece of tube for this. I want to show you a cool trick for spirals because I know you guys are asking about that. Go about right here. Like I said, this makes it real easy to just kind of just get a ballpark of where you want to be. And say, for example, I have two tubes like this. And I want to do a spiral. I want to do a nice spiral. See how we did here. Is this pretty good? Man. That is pretty dang close. Now, this can be a little bit more of a challenge when you're dealing with more material, longer tubing. I'll kind of just dunk my entire insert in here. We'll take our tube, apply our insert. Now we got our insert in here. We got our tubes. Right. Now, one of the other advantages that I like about my little bending board here is that when I want to do some freehand work, I want some more space. And I don't want mandrels to get in my way. So as I've laid them out, I can just kind of flip this over to my fun side. And then now over here, I have more working room to go around with that. Let's see if my GoPro come back on. There we go. Yeah, let's see if that thing's gonna hold on. All right. So you want to do a cool spiral, but you don't know exactly how to get the rotation and or you don't want to try to do it freehand, but you want to have something that's going to kind of give you a template that's also going to give you like a cool little idea at the same time. Like as I mentioned before, you can always put those C-Pros on both ends and then have that prepped before you even start heating this. So once you have the spiral compressed and everything, you can go in and put A into B. And then with that spiral that you would create, you can then just kind of heat and adjust it to get everything to fit in right. But let me just show you an easy way on how to do a spiral. So get my board situated here where I get it nice and sturdy. So this is going to take a little bit longer than normal because this is going to be a lot longer of a piece of tubing. So definitely going to throw this open for some AMA stuff if you guys have any questions. Other than that, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to get this heated and then we'll show you something fun. Secret code today is game with LCGS. Get that extra entry in, guys. Girls. A closet dowel is one way to do it. A closet dowel, broom. I've used a chair leg. You know, like a bar stool, because the fun thing about like a bar stool is that it's got the seat. You can sit it down upside down on the table, and you actually have an anchor point for that post. And it allows you to do some fun spiral stuff, but it takes up a lot of space and everything. But I found this trick out a while back because I didn't think it was possible. But it's going to take a hot minute here to heat this guy up. Yeah, broom handle. Yeah, that's another way to do it. I've used like cans, different kinds of cans to get like different radiuses on them. But the other thing you're dealing with too is that every time you do a spiral, it's really going to take up a lot of real estate. That tubing's it's going to take up a lot of tubing for you. And when I'm doing this, one thing to mention as well is I don't want to heat the ends of this tubing. So you don't want to go too far to the edge. Give yourself a good couple inches, because the last thing you want is to do a crazy wicked spiral and then have an oblonged end because your heat went too far to the edge and it actually changed the dimension on the end piece of the tubing, and then it won't go and sit in the fitting just right. So always give yourself a little bit of extra room. You can always trim it up later. So if you're kind of doing something and it's going to like a little bit longer and everything, you can always trim that guy back. And with this, one of the bigger things to deal with is when you're going this way, I mean, besides your arm getting tired from going back and forth, you're making sure you don't have like I have a hot spot right here, but I don't have a hot spot over here. And a lot of that is because I've been over here. I haven't been over here. Pay attention, Thermaltake. Pay attention. But we're just kind of making sure that we don't focus on one particular area. You also don't have to make one this big either. But, as time goes on and you practice and play with this more, you can get some more fun little ideas. And I hope stuff like this will help you out. Because what we're going to do is we are going to use the other piece of tubing to do the spiral. And you guys may ask, Thermaltake, that tube is going to stick to the other tube. Well, guess what? It doesn't. And it's amazing the dimension I can get with that spiral. Let's see how we're doing. Yeah, there we go. We getting there. It takes a little bit. See? Soft tube. Hey, Dowbeast, thanks for showing up, man. I really appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Stream will be up, guys. If you didn't catch stuff in the beginning or you got to take off early, no big problem at all. We'll be up and you guys can continue where you left off. The magics of Twitch. Let me see. Look at that. Look at that. We're getting real flexible here. Oh, yeah. Nice and good. Give it a couple little more passes. And here's what I like to do. So I'll take this piece of tubing with the other one, and I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to start spinning this and rotating it and rotating it. And what I'm going to be doing as I kind of just go more and more tighter and tighter with this, I'm also keeping my hands on both ends so that I can leave a nice straight point coming off of the two on the end there. And as you can see, and I'm sorry if my camera's dying. Apologize about that. I'll get that taken care of. But as you can see, I'm able to do a spiral like this, and then I can compress it, I can stretch it out, and I can get different lengths as far as what I want to do and make a really cool corkscrew effect this way. And then what I'm doing with my hands very specifically is making sure that this end piece is flush with this piece right here, so that way both of them are going to be just tied in perfectly like that. Oh, my poor camera. It's telling me, no, Thermaltake. Can't work today.
It's telling you, give Steve an RTX 3080 like Steve's one.
The camera's trying to tell me that Steve needs a 3080. 3080? 3090. Come on, Steve. Go big or go home.
I'm not selfish. The 3080 is all I need.
But what 3080, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm holding this because ideally I'm kind of stuck holding this until I can, for the most part, get the tubing to cool. And let me see, is that kind of, yeah, it's keeping up. It's keeping up. And a lot of this is going to depend on how long your distance is going to be from one way to the other. A lot of times you might want to do, leave a little bit of extra on this side because you're going to do a 90-degree bend going, like, say, into a CPU block. Or you're going to be coming down off the rad going across in a long direction, and you want to have a little bit of style to it. So then, for the most part, I mean, it's cooled off enough where I don't particularly have to hold it. But as you can see, I can use this to get a nice straight piece, and this guy just slides right out. And then this is going to give me a very uniform type of corkscrew effect with the tubing. I get a really nice effect with something like this. And then I can take this and I can heat this back up. I can go and slide it right back in here like that. I mean, you can see, you know, I can get this nice and lined up. And then holding it on this one end gives me a nice straight edge. Because ideally, no matter how much you spin or rotate this guy in the middle, you're going to want to always have a nice straight piece going into your fitting. Or if you're going to want to have extra length, keep this longer on this side, and then you'd want to mark, you know, like where you'd want to go as far as like, you know, how you'd want to do your bend and how you'd want to do this. And then I can just take this again. I could reheat, I could set this on the table. I could heat this up. And then as I heat this up, I could then, you know, it's not going to go straight, but it's going to become pliable again where I can do basically a new rotation. And I can make this really tight and almost butt it up against each other and do spirals that way too. But this is a real cool trick that you can do with an extra piece of tubing that you might have laying around, and it doesn't stick to it, and it gives you a nice little radius to do something fun. Hey, what's up, PC Works? How's it going, man? Thanks for joining in the stream, dude. So yeah, we're just having some fun with doing just a real basic type of like corkscrew effect with the tubing like this. And then of course, you know, when you're doing stuff like this, I mean, it's not going to be too much of a problem, but try to get that insert out as soon as you can. So now just kind of pull it. You don't have to go crazy on it. Just go a little slow. Things are going to get a little warm. But then I would have something like this that I could incorporate into a build where I could just kind of, you know, pop it up here on the side and then say like I'm going from like a radiator on the top going to a radiator in the front, or coming down off the radiator going over and then like into like a distro plate. And then I could use something like this to do like a corkscrew effect and then give myself some extra length here. And then all I gotta do is just bend my 90 and then just have to, you know, pray to the gods that you get that 90 just right. But I mean, a lot of times too, you can bend the 90 first. I mean, that's a, you know, actually that's a good point that I bring up, is when you're doing your bends, as far as what you want to do, what's going to be first? What's the easiest way to go? Do you go with this 90 first to come out and then go over and in, and then you worry about the length of one bend versus the length of both bends? It kind of gives you an advantage to, you know, dealing with, you know, like both sides of it. Throw my insert over there. Okay. Okay. Let's cut this up a little. Well, let's see. We have a good piece? Oh, we have a good piece right here. I don't know why I grabbed that up piece. Way too big. Now, the other thing, too, is that you don't need the insert to be the exact same length of the tubing unless you're doing tight bends on both ends that are going into the actual fittings themselves. Most of the time, if I'm just going to be bending like this area right here, my insert only has to be this length. You don't have to have the full tube insert. And I mean, I do that a lot sometimes because I'm going to do the first bend on this one, and then I'm going to do the next bend over here, but I'm going to let all this stuff cool. Or if I'm going to have another bend very close to the first bend that I did, I really want to make sure that first bend is completely cool so I don't reactivate this one when I'm doing, like, say, for example, this one. Let's go ahead and do another one. All right. Is the PC already gift? Not yet, but it will be next Tuesday. So the giveaway actually ends on Halloween, 10/31 at like 11:59 p.m., like right there on the last second or whatever. But that's just for the entries to get to get your entries in. And then for the actual giveaway itself, we'll be announcing the winner next Tuesday. So make sure you guys mark your calendars. We're going to have a lot of fun on that. We're going to have a lot of fun. And also, speaking of fun, we're going to be doing a Halloween special on Thursday and playing some games. So if you guys are free on Thursday, come check it out.
Reckless abandoning.
Oh, really? We got, oh, wow, Reckless. Dude, thank you so much. Oh, wow, I appreciate that. I'm sitting here and I'm bending and everything. And we're, having a good time and all that stuff. And I kind of dive in a little bit, But yeah, thanks for that, man. I appreciate that. Wow. Right. So here I want to show you guys basically what I do for like a 180 degree. So for a 180, actually, let me shut this off. So for a 180, when I'm using our 180 degree mandrel, thanks for the follow. I'm going to want to heat a little bit more of an area because what I'm doing is I'm doing a loop that's going to be coming up and around. So when I'm doing like a 90 degree, I'm going to probably heat about 1 inch, maybe a little bit wider on the, you know, as far as like the space, as far as with the tubing itself. And I probably want to do about 2 to 2.5 inches on the heat for like a 180 degree. And a lot of that you'll see as far as the differences, you know, like what you're going to do. Let me just see what's going on here. Get this guy warmed up. Thank you guys so much for the follow. Appreciate you guys coming on the stream. Thank you so much. Oh, MP Customize. What up, bro? I know the sunglasses thing. You know me, dude. My brother. My brother. What's up, my friend? I miss you, dude. I hope you've been good. So far away from each other. We'll see you soon. So yeah, I'm just heating up a little bit more of an area for a 180 degree because I want to be able to get, you know, doing that stuff. But I want to make sure it's not just a 90. It's going to go a little bit more. So I want to make sure I get a little bit more of that surface heated up. Consider it kind of like double the width as far as what you would do a 90, if that makes better sense. So now I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it into our little mandrel here. And this is going to allow me to, as you can see, kind of set that up, and it makes a real nice clean 180 on the board. And I can just kind of hold it here like this. I could take my damp cloth that I had, and I can just kind of cool the side. And then I can just slide it out and give me that nice little 180 effect. And then you can see, look how it's stretching back up. Now I got a little bit of time to kind of play with this. If this is something where I'm going to be going, say this is the GPU and this is the CPU, and I want to take it, maybe I'm going to 45 it a little bit and kind of throw it inward so I can save some space with it. And then just being able to make sure that I kind of hold that direction as far as what I want. And then, you know, so you don't have to sit there too long with it. Just kind of put a damp rag on it and just make sure that you're getting those nice parallels, you know, between the two tubes that you got here and you got here. And just kind of cool this. I would also even kind of push this down a little bit. So when it stretches back up or it kind of relaxes, it's perfect. I mean, for the most part, it's perfect. But then you can get a nice 180 like this. And you can do a lot of fun with this. I'm a big fan of doing like dual 180s where I could do a 180 like this going from like, say, the GPU, loop over into the CPU, but instead of it coming like up over and then like 90ing it to go in, I'll come all the way down this way and do another 180 and come back in on the other side and kind of do like a little S pattern. And it's just, you're using more tubing and everything, but it's not going to matter as far as, you know, the extra tubing. You're going to have so much to play with that your pump, for the most part, especially if you're using one of our D5 aerial pumps, I mean, you're not going to have a problem with extra tubing. You're not going to have a problem with flow rate using extra tubing. Those people are just angry, I guess, or just uneducated as far as, you know, how much flow rate you really need. Because ideally, you don't want your flow rate to go by extremely fast. You want your flow rate to be, you know, decent. But if it's going too fast, it's not taking the time to cool. And that's both on the component side as well as on the radiator side. So, I mean, if the coolant's going full bore on there, you won't see the best results as if you slowed it down a little bit, because then you're giving the coolant more time to cool in the radiator. And that garden hose flow rate that you're demanding is not going to make or break any differences as far as, you know, like what you're going to do and everything. And at the same time, you're putting more pressure on the system, which can cause more leak possibilities and everything. And it's unneeded. And that's why pumps have adjustable speeds. You know, I mean, depending on what you're going to be doing, if you're doing, you know, like a CPU, GPU and or more like water RAM and stuff, then you're going to be dealing with extra components, extra blocks, extra tubing and everything that you're going to deal with. I mean, basic system, you know, you're just looking, you know, from pump to block to maybe another block to a rad or you're going to do like a pump to block to rad and then back to the pump. A lot of people will do a dual rad setup where they'll go from the pump to a block to a rad to a block, then back over into another rad and then back into the pump. There's a lot of different ways that you can complete that circle. And there's a lot of fun things that you can do with it to play with it as well. So yeah, so here's like a fun little 180 that you can do. And this is, of course, like the thing that I like about this is with the mandrel, I can put it in here and I can get a nice 180 degree pretty easily. And then for those of you guys just tuning in, nice little drywall screw solves all my problems getting this bad boy out. And I can take that guy right out there, and then I have, yeah, see, look, got my cool little 180, right? And you can use this. You can do a lot of fun things with this. Now, the one thing that you want to do too is that after you bend your 180, say you got to cut things shorter, that's where stuff like this can come in real handy. Because if you're using a saw and you're trying to cut across this way, you know, you're going to have to watch out for one tube or the other. I mean, when you're using like a miter box saw, you're dealing with a big flat blade because it's for cutting wood. But you could also get like a metal saw blade where it basically, you know, has that opening and you can kind of put it down in between and then only cut the bottom tube. But something like this comes in real handy to get that, you know, and just kind of chop it. Like say if you had to cut it here versus cutting it out here where it's easy because this tube is either in the way or not in the way. Different tools can really save you a lot of time for, you know, the bends that you want to do. What about pump to rad to GPU to rad to CPU to rad? I mean, in a way that works too. You just have to go back to the pump ideally, right? I mean, my setup at home, I run a 2 radiator setup with both CPU and GPU cooling. And I'm using our distro plate. And with the distro plate, I'm coming out of the distro plate, going into the GPU. And then before I go into the CPU, I hit the top radiator. So that way my GPU coolant heat exchange is going into a rad and being cooled before it drops back down into the CPU. Then from the CPU heat exchange that I get from my coolant, that's going to go into another rad, say like in the front, and then that's going to cool that separately before it returns back to my pump or distro plate to complete the circle and complete my loop. And then that way my 2 components are isolated with 2 separate heat exchange radiators to be able to give you basically the ideal cooling solution. You don't have to have 2 radiators with 2 components. You can definitely do it with one single radiator, but you want to consider the thickness and capacity of that radiator so that you have more cooling performance with that. I mean, it all kind of comes down to the whole formula of delta T and making sure that your heat exchange is going to be, you know, on par with what your demand is going to be from all those components and all that wattage, especially when you're dealing with some of the newer cards. Those new RTX 30 series cards do require a lot more wattage than what most of us were used to with like a 2080 Ti. I mean, you're looking at 100, 120 more watts out of that thing. Does that mean you have to water cool it? Not necessarily, but it definitely gives you a nice advantage. I would say GPU cooling probably give you the best yield out of the bunch from CPU because, I mean, GPU can drop 30 degrees. CPU can drop maybe 15 to 20, depending on what you're doing and depending on what you're doing overclock-wise. So you can definitely get more of a cooling yield cooling that GPU, and it's really beneficial for you because the cooler the components run, then the less degradation that you get, and it doesn't degrade as fast. You know, you're not putting that load on your components all the time with the higher heat, and it, you know, it helps it last longer as well as it gives you the options to push it farther, which is what a lot of us like both about, besides just the fun look of the build and everything, right? Yeah, see, I mean, you know, you can do a lot of different combinations with that stuff, and it can go really good. It can go really good. Dude, thanks, guys. Thanks. Did I miss anything? Did I miss anything? I'm in the zone over here. Yeah.
It's got a D5.
So like I run a D5 pump in mine, and I'm about 3 to 4. I'm usually at a setting about 3 to 4. You really don't necessarily need to go 4 to 5, unless you're really pushing it through a lot of components. But a lot of that's going to deal with like your initial return and what, you know, how fast that coolant's running. I mean, for example, like my stream system that I have back over here, that's running on a 3. And I mean, that's a distro plate to a GPU block to a CPU block. And then I think I'm running, yeah, because then see, then I have the rad on the top and everything. And with that one, I did a 180 coming out of the GPU going into another 180 that looped around to the CPU, and then I just threw a 90-degree fitting on the end. And then that just kind of had that kind of stuff going on. Here's another thing that's a little bit different too that we also have, because I know a lot of people have messed around with wanting to do a little bit more for tubing by adding some like LED fittings and everything. But LED fittings go on a different way on the tubing. Let me explain. So right here, I have our LED fittings. Now with our LED fittings, they work a lot differently than what you would see with a traditional fitting. And the reason why is because this particular fitting is going to go inside the tubing. It's not something that's going to go where you're going to have a collar around the outer edge of the tubing that's going to compress itself on there, but you're going to have two O-rings on the inside of the tubing, inside of it, and then those things are going to compress down and those are going to apply. And a lot of this stuff can get really difficult to try to get this tubing to go in here because of just the way the interior wall is. And that's where this fun little deburring tool comes in. So then I can take this deburring tool with the pointed part on the inside, and I can just kind of go like this. And ideally, I don't want to turn it too crazy hard. I want to just get nice and subtle, nothing too crazy. And what this is going to do is it's going to bevel the inside edge of the tubing. And what this is going to allow me to do is to be able to get this to go on a lot easier. And then this right here, I mean, granted, with this, you can go ahead and you can put this on with, a little bit of water helps too. You just get like a little bit that's going to go in there because a lot of that stuff's going to sit right in there. But for the most part, I'm going to have a lot of this stuff on now. The one thing I did mess up on was getting this collar on, which I was wondering if it was going to fit around that, but it didn't. So that's my fault. But beveling the edge on this is going to be the biggest trick. I mean, if you're not beveling the edge on like an LED fitting that has O-rings on the inside, you're definitely not going to enjoy dealing with a lot of that stuff. And then this is going to allow me to basically, because this one, the way this is set up is it has like a little LED thing that sits on the wall of the tubing. And then as I kind of lay this down on here, this is going to come in and this is going to secure onto the tube. Let me get this straight on here. And then there's like a little groove here for the wires so that the wires can actually go in like a little channel here on the side. And I can take my little box, then I can plug this in and look, now it gives my tubing like a little bit of a glow. No, it might be a little bit hard to see, but you can kind of see that the glow, even all the way around through the bend. Like if I go here and unplug it, you guys see? Plug it back in. Kind of see how it turns on. I know it's kind of bright in here and everything, but this is another way you can do some stuff that can give you some really interesting looks. And a lot of this will allow you to be able to change the color on this because these are addressable. And if you're running like a clear coolant, you can change the color and change the theme of your build a lot quicker, and or just give you an additional accent on the tubing by just having this LED light. I mean, it's so cool how you just basically, and this is going around a bend. I mean, I know you guys may or may not be able to see us too well, but this will definitely travel a good little bit around the bend, as you can ideally see, I think, here. And yeah, it's really interesting. And it just basically just kind of mirrors itself around the tube wall. And you can do some interesting stuff. I mean, even if, like, say I take this off and you can kind of see like little LEDs on the inside. It has a lot larger of a sleeve on it too, so you need to make sure that you give yourself some extra length with it. I'm gonna take our little deburrer guy right here. Make sure you get all these little pieces out and everything too, you guys. So when you're doing a lot of your bends and then you're going and you're doing your cuts and everything, I always like to take like, I always like to rinse this all out with distilled water. You don't really need too much more. Rinsing this out with distilled water once everything's cut and fit, get all the soap out, get everything all cleaned up, makes it real easy, and it's an easy cleanup. I mean, there's some other stuff people will use you know, for doing their tube work stuff and everything. But soapy water is the easiest way to go. The cleanup is super simple on it. And then, you know, you can get a nice look on it too. So then I can go and let's put this guy in here. Let's see what this looks like. The only trick with these guys is like once you get it lined up, you just want to make sure that little LED panel and the wiring for it lines up with the little groove, dude. So there's like a little notch right here where the wires come out. So you have that. But then even with say something like this, oh, guys, this is probably gonna be a little bit harder. I could probably turn the lights off, but you get a nice glow, and you can even see kind of a little bit of the glow, like even all the way over here. So it does kind of follow the bend. And you know, when you have it in a system and you put another one on the other end, it will reach those kinds of distances where you'll get a good amount of light bleed all the way through the fitting, and it'll give you a really cool look. I mean, it's really interesting. And then how you do the tubing and everything, if you're doing more of like a swirly loop versus 90-degree bends, it can give you a really nice aesthetic to, you know, adding like that touch, you know, you want to add that little touch to your coolant or your liquid cooling build and all those stuff.
Rescue on YouTube. Why would you use water?
Oh, well, definitely because of all those little minerals and everything that you would have in tap water. I mean, okay. So in all fairness, once I bend the tubing, I cut it. I got little pieces of plastic in here from all the cuts and everything. I can take this and just put it right under the sink, run faster water through it, right? And just kind of blow everything out. But once I do all of that, I'm going to want to take like, let's see. Something like one of our squeeze bottles. So like we have like a squeeze bottle like this. I'll fill this guy up with distilled water because you don't really want to use coolant. It's kind of a waste of money. But you know, distilled water, really cheap. And then I'll just kind of put this in here and I'll squeeze this to kind of fill it up and then just kind of dump it out, fill it up, dump it out. And after I use like the tap water to kind of blow everything out, if that's what you're going to be doing, just always make sure you rinse it out with distilled water so that way it kind of cleans it all out. You don't want to use tap water or have tap water be a part of your system. And a lot of that also involves with the different metals and everything. But most of the part nowadays, I mean, in the past, it was a little different between dealing with copper and nickel plated stuff, even aluminum stuff. And most everything now is a copper cold plate that's nickel plated. And a lot of people are basically, for the most part, doing that now because it just gives you, you know, nice comfortability for the way what the coolant is actually touching. And I think that speaks a lot of words for how we've progressed with Thermaltake with our Pacific Series line, from the radiators, from the blocks, and all the other components that we did with different metals, trying out different things. And I think with like our new CLM copper radiators that we have, even our dual fin copper radiators that are fairly new that are out in the market, and then all of like our water blocks, like our CPU blocks, our GPU blocks, are all copper cold plate, nickel plated blocks. So you really don't have too many issues with that. But yeah, definitely not a big fan of tap water for just the initial rinse, but get like get a little squeeze bottle like this. We sell these. And just kind of squirt and fill it and dump it out a couple of times just to rinse out all your tubes. Basically, I call it doing the dishes. When I'm done with my build, I got to go do the dishes. And I'll take all of my little tube parts that I'll have for my build. After I got everything all cut and fitted and everything looks good, fitment's great on it, then I'm going to take this off and go rinse it all out. Rinse it out with distilled water, and then I'll be ready to go to put it in the system so that I can put the coolant in for the first time. So great question. Thanks for asking. Nice. I'm glad you got all 9 entries. That's awesome. Always bevel. Then if you really want to give it the best edge, grab a sanding sponge and a quick swish around. Yeah. I don't honestly bevel any of the tubing because of the C-Pro fittings. A nice flat wall is ideal. Even with the C-Pros the way they are, with the way the design is, I mean, it doesn't even have to be even that good. I mean, you don't even have to sand it. I mean, I've gotten a little spoiled with those, to be honest. But my basic common practice is after I get everything cut to fit, I'll go back and I'll do a light sanding on it. And then, of course, after that, I'll rinse everything out. So I just make sure I get all the little debris out of there and everything. So, yeah, some good stuff. Some good stuff. All right. Let's do something else. Anything in particular you guys would like to see? I mean, minus doing like balloon animals and such. All right, this is a good piece. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people can definitely be worried about this. It's a big investment, big budget that you have to spend. And then, of course, you know, you're relying on yourself to make sure you do everything right. Um, People go a little overboard, I think, on a lot of the prep work for the coolant. Um, you know, a lot of people will use different like little cleaning kits and so on and so forth. I highly do not recommend any of those. Just rinsing everything out with distilled water. Even my radiator, I'll fill my radiator up with distilled water, give it a good shake, dump it out, fill it back up, give it a good shake, dump it out. It's pretty much good to go. That takes out most of like the little pieces from the manufacturing process. I mean, at least for Thermaltake radiators, we have plugs in all of them, so that way it helps with, you know, that process that it has to go through, right? And keeping the extra debris on the inside. But a nice safe practice is just to kind of like I'll plug up the bottom port and then maybe plug like the back two and, you know, kind of just fill it with water, like laying it down sideways and then kind of just shake it back and forth, or even going like this, just kind of shaking it, and then I'll dump it out and I'll shake it and I'll dump it out the other way. And, you know, just do that to just kind of get a lot of that stuff just, you know, up and out of there. Yeah, I love doing roller coaster builds. I did, I think one of my favorite ones was the View 37 that I did a while back, where I basically did the tube work like it would be like a roller coaster ride. That last 360 I got had a few shavings. Yeah, it can happen. It can happen and everything. And I mean, the other thing too is, you know, with the little pieces that you'd have either like on the edge of the tubing, watch your fingers, you know, make sure you don't get that cut into your fingernail and so on and so forth. Like I said, you know, 400 grit wet sandpaper, just dry. It, you know, sands this really well. I mean, you can even kind of round the edges again too. Like if you're using a fitting that's not like our C Pros, to be able to kind of, you know, because you'd have to push that in at that point and then use the compression on it versus like a flat wall like we have. So that way you can have a lot of those kind of things with that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys kind of like what I would do for one of the bends that I like doing a lot, which is basically like a dual 180 bend, where I'd be going from, say, the GPU to the CPU. And what you want to think about when you're doing these bends is, of course, that distance. You always want to have a little bit more, so that way you can trim it up. But at a certain point of the bends, you're going to have to eventually find that end point as far as where it's going to go. But if you're doing something where it has multiple bends on it, you don't have to worry about it with the first bend. So don't think about it too much with the first initial bend. Think about it in regards to the second bend. And I'll try to explain that here and give you guys a nice little shortcut on trying to do a tube connecting like something like GPU to CPU, and you don't have that much space for it, but yet you want it to be cool. You don't want it to be just like a little up and around or like a simple 90 degree that's kind of cockeyed because that's what you had to do. You know, you always have lots of options for stuff like that. So we'll just start here with just doing like a 90 degree bend. Kind of come over like this guy. And then, yeah, I'm just pressing this into my 180, not 90, sorry, 180 degree. And I'm just kind of holding this here because I want to keep a nice format on that distance as far as how big that radius is going to be and just getting a nice shape with it. And then we're just going to use our damp rag right here to cool this off. Oh, nice and cool, baby. There we go. Slide this guy out. There we go. Now I can make a little bit of, while it's just finishing that cooling, what I always like to do is I just kind of pinch it a little bit more. So that way when it expands back out, I got a nice radius with it. It gives me that nice, you know, clean little edge to it. Because sometimes this guy can travel, kind of go up a little bit, and you don't get that perfect little shape, and you can kind of rebend it. And like I said earlier, you can always reactivate this and reheat it again. But a lot of it really depends on how much you're heating. You don't want to heat too much because you don't want this to go up into this part right here, because then it's going to kind of oblong this or stay down here. You want to make sure you control that space that you're going to heat. And a lot of that is with practice. A lot of that is with practice. And to try to be able to get something like, say, now my graphics cards here, I'm going to have this connect up into my graphics card. And then I want to go into my CPU, but my CPU is basically right above my graphics card, right? You're dealing with this in, you know, a nice vertical straight line with this, but I want to do something a little bit more creative with what I'm doing with my tubing. So I'm going to have this go into my GPU. See, I got a 90 degree fitting. This is going to come loop in. And instead of trying to turn and do like a sharp 180 into the CPU block and kind of end it, because then when you kind of do that, it looks all right, but it can be a little troublesome just the same. And I would say that when you're doing something like that, I would likely bend the 90 degree first. So that way I have the 90 coming out like this. And then when I would have this piece, say it goes like out to here, then I'm going to bend my 180 to kind of, you know, like if you would kind of picture something like this put together where I would have, you know, this little setup where I'd have that tubing going into the CPU, and then this is going to connect down into the GPU. And doing something like that, you can do something fairly easy with that. Another cool little trick with this is that, you know, you bend these little 90s like this. This is a great little eyeball for you guys that, you know, maybe you're just getting started out with this to help you where you need to bend. And the reason why I say that is because if I have a piece like this and I'm doing a 180 and I want to know where I want to bend that 90 degree angle, take a little piece, bend your 90. Once you have your 90, then you go and you do your 180 like this. And then once you have your 180, you can just kind of use this tube to kind of put it up like this. I mean, get some tape and even kind of like tape it where you want it to go. You know, use this stuff to your advantage. Where I can kind of like, you know, get an idea, right? I can get an idea on something like that as far as where that's going to be. And then when I look at that tubing, as far as where I have it, and then I'm going to look at this piece and go, okay, I heated this part. It's going to start here on the heat, and I want it to end about right there. So I want just this part heated. But then as far as where I'm going to bend on the tubing, I can use this. You know what I mean? Like I can use this here to kind of judge where I'm going to go. And then once I have that set up and I have this set and knowing like, okay, that's lined up with my CPU. This is going to go right into my graphics card. I'm going to know now looking at this that I'm going to want to bend about right here. And then if you're, you know, like say, for example, if you can't just lock this down and think about it real hard to make sure you're not going to move your finger. Another real good trick is like when you have something like this set up and you're mocking it up in the system, right? You're mocking it up in the system and you have it right there. You're going to look and go, okay, my heat bend starts about right here on the tubing on this piece, the spare piece. And then with this one, as I've lined it up and I'm holding it or I taped it around, whatever I'm going to do, and I'm going to see that 90 degree heat bend, I'm going to go, okay, let me grab my little pinstripe tape. I'm going to take my little pinstripe tape that I have, make a little mark, say right there. And I'll just kind of just pop it on there. Now I can put the tube down. Now that I have the tube down, I can run my little tape line. And then now I have a little tape line marker right here. So I don't have to worry about where I'm at or what I'm going to do. And the best part about it is that I can just go in here and I can heat this with this tape on. Because all it is just, you know, plastic tape. I mean, this is that inexpensive like pinstripe tape that a lot of painters use. And with this, I can just basically, it's not going to, you know, I can sit here and I could start heating on this and know that this is my starting point, is my point. Is that you will know where you're going to start to heat, and then you can focus on that little segment to heat, knowing right there, and you have like a good little guideline with it. And it makes it really cool to know where you're going to go. And like I said earlier too, if you mess up, don't worry about it. Use this as a mock-up piece to then figure out where you're going to do your 90 degree bend. Use this, you know, even if it's ugly, but it goes in, at least you'll have an idea where it's going to be. And then you can now use this scrap piece as kind of like a template for the next time. So you're not like starting over from zero. You're basically going from something a little bit further. And maybe you'll get it on the second try or the third try or the fourth try. I mean, you got a lot of stuff that you have to do there. Got to give the Donkey Kong PC. Thank you. That's actually up in the front of our office still. It needs an upgrade.
I see it every day.
Steve sees it every day. You know, the Donkey Kong little button thing still works. I think it's just hilarious. But yeah, you can play. I mean, get some of this stuff. Get some of the tubing, get the insert, buy a heat gun, try it. I mean, you don't have to have the mandrels. You don't necessarily need the mandrels, but the mandrels do make a lot of things easier for you and give you a nice guideline for a lot of that. Same with a little piece of tape. Think about those kind of things when you're planning out what you want to do. So like for this one, now, let's say this is going to be where I want to heat. I got it mocked up in my system as far as like where I want to go. And I know that as far as what I want to do, with this being my GPU and my CPU is basically right up here, I want to do another 180. And I want to do another 180 and come in over into the other side, because maybe I got like my CPU block like this, and then I have my CPU block up here, and I want to loop it up and around into that. And I have a good amount of, like if you have a gap here between, I'm trying to how to show this, but like if you have a gap here with this, you can use that gap instead of doing like a 90 and just going straight into it. I could do another 180 and basically kind of wrap it around and give it a cool little look. So let's try it. So now I'm going to be setting this down on the table because it makes it a little bit easier, because now I'm having to hold on to my little candy cane here. And yeah, if you guys have any particular questions on any of this stuff, let me know. Happy to answer any questions you guys would have. I really hope some of you guys can have some fun with some hard tubing and, you know, take your build to the next level. We have a lot of variety of parts from Thermaltake, and a lot of our stuff, like our tubing and our fittings, are just, I'm very amazed with being able to use this stuff all the time. I mean, I've done several builds here for Thermaltake, and I have never really had a problem with our tubing in all the builds that I've done. And then ever since we introduced the C Pros, it has changed my life when it comes to liquid cooling. So I'm just kind of heating up a little bit bigger of an area because I want to be able to do another 180 on here. We're getting pretty close. Now on the mandrels, the other thing you got to really think about too is which way you're going to be going. So as far as if I'm going to have this, am I going to be bending this back around and I'm going to do something like that? Now, do I want this to be a larger radius, or do I want to keep it like the same radius that I have here on the other tubing? It really all kind of depends on the space that you have, like I was saying, from the CPU to the GPU side. You have a little bit of room to play with on it, and this can help you with making sure you don't have to stress about what the space is going to be from one to the other. You can do a nice cool loop-de-loop, or you can do a 180 like this, and it saves you a lot of hassle, and it also kind of looks pretty dang cool to be able to kind of bend around and then do something like this, where now you have kind of like a C shape, or like, you know, like a kind of like an S in a way, but like a sideways S, where you get this nice little tabletop type of bend. And then this guy, you know, you can stretch it and you can modify this to kind of make sure that that radius stays real nice. Or you can just, of course, you know, take it and you can put it into the mandrel, and you can do a nice bend with a mandrel on it too. And sometimes I like to offset the loops, so that way I would have a loop that's going to be bigger like this, and then have a smaller loop like that. And that's going to be a particular reason, depending on how my case is set up and how everything's built in on there. Because with that, I mean, if I needed that extra space because I have a larger case, or I'm going vertical with my graphics card and it's more towards the glass or the window part of it, this is going to be the difference that I'm going to make up. And then this is going to give me a really cool look as far as once I'm done, you know, doing my tube work. Let me make sure I got, okay. And then with this, just the same, you have this that's going to be nice and straight, but then you also have this where you have to deal with, see, I can show you, dealing with this way too, right? So you're going left and right as well as up and down. And you want to make sure that when you're doing this, do you want this to be straight and straight, you know, as far as the loops, or maybe you need to kind of like canter this or 45 it a little bit, and you can kind of push this over. I guess if you can, it's kind of hard to show you, but you can kind of push it over to the side like that. And then now you have something more kind of at the side. I mean, granted, you built it this way, but it could go into the system more to like an angle. And I still have my 90 that's going in here for the GPU. And then I have this other part here for the CPU, just the same. And even if I wanted to, I could then, after this part, bend another 90 and go into the CPU. And you can do some fun stuff like that. All right, so question here. Mike, what is your favorite upcoming release from Thermaltake? Personally, I'm excited for the colored tubes. You know, the colored tube stuff is something that is unfortunately on the back burner. It's something that we want to definitely offer for our LCGS side, but a lot of stuff with what's been going on and everything has kind of delayed us a little bit. But rest assured, I'm definitely trying to get some stuff going on in there with it. I mean, I've had it for a little bit. We have a limited supply of it. And once we can get a proper source going on it, it's something I'd definitely like to offer, just for not necessarily the DIYers, but, for our custom liquid cooled systems as well. But yeah, to answer the question, probably the thing that the most excited about, the 350p was probably one of the biggest things. Since I saw it at CES, the 350p, just a giant distro case, was just amazing. I mean, well, actually, I did see it at Computex last year, and then we showed an upgraded version of it, or a more final version of it at CES. But man, I was just giddy about that. I mean, that thing was just awesome. And then as this stuff's kind of cool enough and everything, I still got maybe a little bit of pliability left in this. I can always reheat this and get it nice, because I mean, you want to get that nice inner radius like this. And a lot of that, from what you saw, was just some basic just hand bending. I mean, I did this with a mandrel, and you can do this to get a nice uniform shape from one side to the other, especially if you have a tighter fitment. This 180 is a real good space saver for what you'd want to do. I mean, just the same, I could go into the GPU and wrap it around through the front of the card, and then come back up and around and then go into the CPU for the CPU water block. And this is just a fun little shape that you can do. And I mean, this isn't a lot of tubing. This is basically 2 bends. You're not dealing with like a lot of 180 stuff, because you could you could throw a fitting in there and you can offset it that way, or you can do some other stuff with it too. Yeah, so that's basically like a dual 180 type of bend. We've shown 90s. I mean, 45s or 45s. I think with like some 45 stuff, I'd like to show you guys more like in a build, because I think it makes a little bit more sense. But I want to actually be doing, like a full type of build. Like, I'll have the build done, but I want to show you guys how I basically kind of line everything up like A to B. I think the Core P3 will be a good start for something like that. And I'd like to maybe even do something with like the S300 that I have over here. This is a great little case for stuff like this, because I can still do a radiator and a distro plate, or go with a pump reservoir combo and still have options for radiator in like a mid-tower case, and be able to cool both CPU and GPU. I mean, to be honest with you guys, I'm waiting on those 30 series water blocks from us. I've gotten a word from a little bird that has told me that it's coming soon. And I cannot wait to get my hands on one of those, because we're going to do a full installation, putting the water block on those 3080, 3090 graphic cards, and then putting that thing into a system and getting it underwater, because we want to see definitely what kind of cooling performance we get out of that. So I'm really excited for that. I should have something for that here pretty soon. I'll definitely do my best, Jay Costa, to throw some extra love in there for you too. No problem, man. Oh yeah, no, I saw that block from Alpha Cool. It does look like Johnny Five. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I think it's cool, to be honest. I mean, for somebody to take it and you flip it around and have like a little like look like that, like the EVGA 3080s with the little red accent on the end and everything, and the googly eyes and stuff. That's what it's all about. That's the funnest stuff, doing this kind of stuff, man.
Googly eyes is what it's all about?
Googly eyes is what it's all about. We got to throw googly eyes on everything. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. And I mean, if you're dealing with different things, to either have to cut stuff like this, or even just like a simple little piece of tape, can go a long way as far as remembering where you're going to be and where you got to cut it at. I mean, a lot of times with that, I would just use wherever it went, like a little Sharpie. Is it in my jacket pocket? Is it in my jacket pocket? But yeah, like a little Sharpie and everything like that. And I'll just mark on the tubing where I got to cut. I'll kind of line it up there as far as, where my block's going to sit. Like as far as how I'd have it, or if I had like this and then I had like a 90-degree on here, and it's going to be like, say it's like going over. Like as I show you, it's going over. And then I need to trim it back so that I can line that up. It's always best to give yourself a little bit more, because then you can always trim it back to fit it in there. And that goes a long way when you're dealing with something complex. Well, I guess it's not necessarily complex, but it might be complex, where now that I kind of have this, I could take this, and for the most part, it's going to fit in a lot of different configurations. I just have to trim it up. I'd have to cut this a little bit shorter to fit into a 90, or I got to cut this part a little bit shorter here just so that I can get that right length of it. Or even if, say, this is perfect, and then I have to trim this up a little. As long as you don't have to add on, you're good to go. And a lot of that comes with practice and just planning out like what you're going to do. What bend do you want to do first when you're dealing with a piece of tubing that you're going to have to do multiple bends in? Like if you're coming up and then over and then in, you're dealing with 2 different bends with 3 different angles. And the first bend is usually going to be the easiest, but it's always which way do you start? Do you start with the bend coming out and over and then going down? Or do you do the one coming up, over, and then in? For me personally, I always like to deal with the bend that's going in first. So I would have like my bend that's going to go into the block, or it's going to be coming out of the case, right? So this is going to be coming out of the case and then over, and then say I'm going to bend it down. I'm always going to want to bend that part that's coming out of the case first, because it's so much more difficult to have the bend here, and then you need to bend it inward. And then once you have to try to bend it inward, it can be, it can be like a real pain, because this part right here, you're not going to be able to see that distance, because this is going to be going into the case, and this is going over and up into a rad, and you'd have something like that. This part right here, bending up into the rad, is going to be easier to figure out than trying to figure out the distance of this bend that's going into the actual case itself, or like say going into a distro plate, and you're coming out over and you're going up and in to something. Then I would always say that this is going to be the second bend you're going to want to do, not the bend going inward into the case. Because if this is too long or too short, it can be a problem for you, because now your distance, once you have this, it also is relevant to how it's going in and out of the case. And where I have something that's going to be bending up like into a radiator, I'll have room to cut this and make it to fit, where with this one, it's going to affect my distance coming out of the case and getting those nice parallels when you look down the side of it, not necessarily from the front shot. Now, those people in the modding community are very, very specific on their camera angles for specific reasons, because you want to make sure that those angles are going to show those tubes lined up just right. And then when you're doing an event, you have all these people come out and they're looking at all these builds, and it's fully exposed and wide open. Everybody's going to look at it from all these different angles, and they're going to go, well, this part right here looks good this way, but when you look at it this way, it's cockeyed. And that's because you didn't think about that other angle. So it's always something to think about. Always something to think about. C-Pros were definitely a game changer for me. From the cuts, being able to have that 0 point and being able to know exactly where that tube is going to line up on there. Using other fittings just doesn't make any sense to me anymore, because now you don't even know how far. You kind of have an idea as far as where it's going to press in, because we had those fittings before the C-Pros. Did a lot of builds with those. The Donkey Kong was one of them. And being able to know that little section or that little space that you'd have that's going to press into the fitting, and you actually would have to press it in, where with like a C-Pro fitting, it doesn't press in. It sits on there. It slides in. When you're not dealing with something where this is going to be something I have to put up against and then push it in to lock it in and then secure it with, with a compression fitting, I can also, dude, it's just so crazy, because something like that where I could drop it down in and it's going to sit down in, slide and lock, slide and lock. It's not going to be something where I have to push this in and then push that in. And trying to figure out the distances between this side and this side, where you're going to cut it, off spacing the push part. Because, when you go in to have to push this in, and then you have this part, it's going to be kind of sticking out. When you go to try to push this in, what's it going to do? It's going to try to pull this part back out. So you have to make sure those distances are perfect, and you can't even see them. So the C-Pros really, really make a lot of this easier for me. And it allows me to do a lot more with it too. So yeah. So if you guys have used the C-Pro fittings, definitely thanks for the support. That fitting is the best fitting in the market. I'd love anybody to challenge me on that. Anybody. I've worked with so many modders and talked to so many people. Those C-Pro fittings are just such a game changer, and being able to have this kind of an option where this plate, this, you know, you put your little O-ring on here and you put this stuff on here. That's just a game changer right there. I can drop this in, slide this in, secure it. I don't have to push it into anything. I have a flat plate that this goes right up against. It's just a dream. Makes it easy. Makes it easy. Yeah, the 30. Yeah, they do remind you of the Dodge Charger. It does kind of look like that, huh? It's some fun stuff, right? The graphic cards, the different styles, what everybody does, and everything, and then the blocks, and then you kind of tie all it in together when you're getting performance as well as aesthetics for both. I mean, that's where the tube work comes in, because you need to connect everything up together, and it's how you want to do it is how, you know, a lot of this stuff's going to go. I mean, you can do a lot of different things with us. I mean, if you're going to do something like even say like with how I did something like this, which what I would say would be a little bit more extensive for like a CPU, GPU type of connectivity. I mean, just the same, I could do like a loop-to-loop, do like a little turbo thing, and I could have it where it's going to come out of the GPU like this. Oh, let me get a little. Where this is going to come out like this, and then now I can take this and I could do like a single or double loop with it, and I could do something like that. Or even if I wanted to do like, say like a bigger loop, depending on how I had this stuff, you know, you can do a lot of different things and kind of keep this proportion with it. You know, I almost forgot to mention, this stuff is really good for being able to get your fitment. And the reason why I say this is because when you have these inserts, and I mean, I'm spoiled. I have a lot of these. I'm sorry. I wish we sold more of this stuff. Again, if you guys are interested in longer pieces of insert and you have a system build going on right now, let me know. I'll definitely see what I can do to help if you're using our Thermaltake PETG tubing. But this stuff right here really gives me a nice option to kind of lay out what the length is going to be. Like as far as, I mean, say, let me move this out before I burn myself. Wouldn't be the first time. Let's say like if I had my bending board over here. Look at it like this. Like say for example, I have my insert and I have my tube, it's gonna come out here. Let me come over so I can see the damn thing. But say I wanna know what my distance is from say like a front radiator or even a top mounted radiator, and I'm going down and I'm going over. I can take this tubing and I can kind of like mock it up like this, or the insert. I can take the insert, I can kind of mock this up like this, and then see where like, say like that bend's gonna go. And I can basically kind of like set it almost like I would take the block and I would take the fitting and I put the fitting right here on the end. Like, you know, I just kind of put the fitting on there. Take the insert, put the insert inside the tubing. This is going to give me kind of like an idea as far as where it's going to be. And then I can bend this over, and then maybe I can go bend it up. And then this is going to, you know, I can kind of push this up into the other fitting. I can look at it and go, that's pretty close. You know, and I can kind of try to refine it a little bit as far as, you know, how I'm going to lay this out. And then I can transplant that over into, you know, the actual system. And then with the bends that I do, then I just go and I straighten this out and go, oh, you know what? This is probably going to be about the right size. Because, I mean, you're eyeballing it other than that, or you're measuring it out and being a crazy person. I mean, you could do that too. But then this is going to allow me to get a ballpark of what my length's going to be on my next piece. And then I can go here and I can cut this. And then this is going to give me kind of like the ballpark as far as what I want to do with that. And it was all thanks to just kind of taking the insert and just kind of playing around with it and doing little things. Like you want to know how big of a loop you can do, or you want to know, like say you want to do a good loop in it, but you don't want the loop too big, or you want a nice loop like this, but then you want that loop to then extend out more over this way. So then you go, okay, I'll grab another insert, and then I'll take it like that, and then maybe say I have like a loop that I want to do. I mean, this is that's too big. Let me see. Where's another good piece? I have all these like little short pieces. I guess this one's not. This one's too crazy too. But if I wanted to do something where I'm going to loop one into the other and make a little E like this, or I can do, you know, different shapes with it. but this is going to allow me to see what that distance is with the radius, how that circle is going to get applied. You know what I mean? Like as far as like, how are you going to connect this up? And then want to know what that length is going to be to get like a ballpark of like the tubing length. So you're not just going, all right, put this up here. Yeah, about right there's good. And then you're going to cut it, go in there, and you're just going to be like, it was just a little bit too short on one end. Use the insert to kind of give you like a little guideline, kind of, dream up what you're going to want to do, look at a bunch of the stuff that you got going on in there. Use your tools that you got. It can come up with some fun stuff. All right.
How much fun?
Loads of fun. Are you guys having a good time? I really appreciate you guys checking out. I know a lot of you guys have been on here for a while. We've been doing this for a few hours, and I hope I got at least the basics kind of covered with hard tubing stuff. I mean, we got so much more to do here on the show and with Thermaltake Live, and we're going to be doing a lot more of this. We're going to be doing a lot of hard tube bend stuff into systems and everything. 3080 water block. I want that so badly, and I want that so badly to show you guys what's next coming from Thermaltake. So I'd probably say right now with the 350p out, that new water block is probably going to be my most favorite thing, my holiday wish guide, I guess, for like Thermaltake. Modular AIOs. I don't think so. I think most of our AIO lineup, as far as what we have and everything, is pretty solid. We've, ventured out and done the RC one with the memory cooling and everything. It's a little different, I would say. It's some newer stuff. I wouldn't say necessarily memory cooling is a big deal, but it could be in the future. And I think we're kind of planning a little early for that. But it's still like a fun little aesthetic too. I mean, to give yourself a little bit more RGB for the people that are looking for that. And then, just with AIOs in general, I mean, 240, 360, you really can't go wrong with something like that. It's pretty much solid as the way it's going to go. And, oh man, dude, props from Russia. Thanks so much. Right on. Got some good friends over there at TT Russia. I'm excited. I usually get to see them every year in Taiwan, and we didn't get to see them this year, so I was bummed. There's definitely some good friends over there. But I mean, it's the same with everywhere else. I mean, we're all kind of stuck here for a little bit. So, let's do a live show and show you guys some fun stuff. But yeah, AIOs are great for what you're going to do. And then maybe you get bored down the road. You want to get a little bit more out of your components. You want to change up your aesthetics a little bit more. You kind of get just yes and yes and yes and yes from going DIY LCS. I mean, it's just kind of the way it goes. I mean, doing some fun bends like this, I mean, there's a lot of things you can come up with. There's a lot of, straight and clean for those people that like that. Some other people like some crazy loop-to-loops. Some people like to throw like a cool little spiral because it just looks wicked on that first coolant push. I mean, we've done it all here at Thermaltake, and we want to be able to show you guys what you can do with our products and give you guys a little bit of tips and tricks along the way too, as far as what you can come up with it. Pre-blocked card partnership. We've actually been working with our LCGS department for not necessarily for like a pre-blocked card, because I mean, when you think about it, I mean, at least for the US market, because I mean, that's where we're at. We're in the US, but I mean, as far as how everything goes with those cards, there is no warranty breaking. It's straightforward. I mean, if you've seen other media out there, that little sticker that they put on the back of the screw is a lie. They can't get you for any of that stuff. Feel free to water block your card. You're not going to have a problem with it unless you break it. I mean, physical damage is physical damage. But if you're stressing about a sticker on a screw, I don't think you should worry about it. There's a lot of stuff out there saying that you don't have to. And to get the performance, most graphic card companies are being more open about it over the last few years, saying like, go ahead and water block that card. Push the performance. The only thing that they ask you to do is to make sure that you put the card back to stock configuration, before you send it in, which I think is fair. I mean, some people might not put the thermal paste back on and everything because they think, well, a dead card's a dead card, but, support your local GPU company. If you're going to water block the card, give it back to them the way that they gave it to you and support them on that, because that water block's going to work great for the next card that you're going to get. And, lining everything up and doing all that stuff is just so much fun. Being able to do the thermal paste and all the different stuff, cutting the little pads for the memory modules, water blocking the card and seeing that performance benefit that you get, the temperature performance that you get from that, it really goes a long way with a lot of that. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, power color, I don't really deal with too much. So I'm not really sure. With only one radiator, is there any difference DDC versus D5? D5 is going to push the coolant further. I think it's like about a 15-foot push radius on like a D5. The thing that's like DDCs are more compact, but I've fallen in love with D5s for a reason because they're the best pumps in the market. DDCs run hot. So I would say they run a little bit warmer than what your D5 is going to be. Is that a problem? Not necessarily, but D5s do last longer. And I think longevity is probably one of the most important things you should consider with a pump. I mean, it's going to pump coolant regardless, but do you want one that's going to last you and for this build and the next one and maybe even the next one? Or are you going to, want to be a little worried about that? I mean, we sell both, so I'm not going to try to hate on DDC too much. It has its place. And it has its fitment, especially with compact systems and everything. When you're looking to, put some, a lot of cooling in a small place, those things can be a lifesaver. And I mean, you still get great performance out of them just the same, but you do get some more options with the D5, but you pay for it. You pay for it. I don't necessarily think the DDCs do like they run loud out the gate, like initially, because it's just, cycling all the coolant and everything. I would definitely say they run a little bit louder, but they do get really quiet after time. Once you get all the air bubbles and everything out of the system and everything, it really does, quiet up. I almost basically can't hear it with the ones that we have with like the kits that we sell. Because, we're offering not just individual components that we sell, like the tubing, the fittings, the blocks, and everything like that. But Thermaltake took it a step further, and we offer full liquid cooling kits. So we have a variety of kit options for both 240 and 360 radiators. We're doing both soft tube and hard tube kits as well. And I mean, if hard tubing might be a little too hard for you, you can always get a soft tubing kit because it's basically the same thing. The only difference is going to be the fittings and the tubing. And you can always go to hard tubing down the road using your soft tube cooling kit just the same, as far as just upgrading and freshening up your build. You get bored of it, you want to do a little bit of change, you want to do a color change, you got a lot of those things that you can deal with and all that stuff too. So we offer a variety of things, from full kits that will give you basically just about everything, from the fittings, the insert, the blocks, coolant, rad, everything all in the box, or more of like a starter kit variety that's more budget friendly. And then, you can go and do the individual stuff just the same too. We got this stuff all over the place for either fittings, tubing, coolant, and more. It's all available online. Take a look at our website, thermaltakeusa.com. We now have a store there, so you can actually buy the products directly from us right here in California, and it ships directly right here out of our office for all of our customers that purchase directly. Or you can check out our, e-tailers all over the place too. We got all that stuff out there, and sometimes they have some incentives or discounts on it. We know holiday season's coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun stuff to buy here coming up for Black Friday, a lot of promotion stuff. So make sure you guys click like, subscribe, follow, whatever it's got to be to take a look at the next thing that we got here coming from Thermaltake. Because we're always, hey, we're doing a giveaway PC, guys. $3,000 gaming PC. And you guys saw it because you saw one of our links or you tuned in on the stream. And we appreciate that. And this is our Thanksgiving back to you guys. So more stuff to come. This is just the beginning with this. But yeah, I think this is going to kind of wrap us up for episode 4. We hope you guys have been staying tubed here with all of our fun stuff that we got going on. And I hope I was able to show you guys a little bit of tips and tricks as far as what I do. And we're going to be doing a lot more of this. So I really appreciate it. Having a lot of micro bubbles in your loop, normal after 24 hours. What I would probably suggest to do is tilt the case a little bit. So like once you have the system all filled up, kind of like lift it up one way, and then kind of set it down, and then kind of tilt it this way, set it down, kind of teeter-totter. There could be like a little bit of like an air pocket stuck up in the radiator. Another thing that I would like to do too, with that is, unplug the pump and plug it back in. You kind of, if you shut the pump off, and like say it's like in a pump reservoir combo, as soon as you kill the power to the pump, you get a little bubble that comes up. If you do, there's usually some air trapped in there, and just power cycling the pump a couple of times should, for the most part, work that stuff out. But yeah, micro bubbles aren't going to be a problem. I mean, you'll get a lot of those just initial little bubbles like in the tubing, or especially with like the reservoir and everything. It ain't going to hurt anything at all as long as you're basically completing doing a vacuum with it, meaning that the air's not getting back into the coolant, or like the downstem is not in the coolant, like where the coolant levels should be up here, not down here where this is pouring out. You're going to definitely run into some aeration with that. But micro bubbles and stuff shouldn't be a problem. Shouldn't be a problem. I have the P5 case, and I will buy the T5. Oh, nice. Yeah, dude, that hockey stick thing is awesome. That distro plate. Yeah, of course you can use it only for a CPU. And one of the benefits with that, using it for a CPU, is that you'll have additional ports to, say, like water cool your GPU down the road. So it'll give you some other expandable options, just as well as it's going to give you this awesome look of this full distro plate that's going to be coming down the front of that case and, giving you the coolant. But you'll also have some other options too with the fittings on it. Because that's one of the things I love about the distro plates, is that it gives me more options for what I'm going to do. Because I don't necessarily need to have the tube lined up exactly where that port's going to be. I might want to use the port at the bottom or in the middle, or the one on the top and come down or come up or go over. You got a lot of different options with that. And the more options of outlets that you get, the more possibilities you have for doing some awesome tube work. Oh, real quick question before we go. Okay, maybe you can help. My Water 2.0 Extreme is making a clicking noise, but I want to go through the steps of removing air. It stops clicking and then starts back. Is it low, or does it have air in the lines? The clicking noise does not necessarily mean that it's air in the line. I would say that it could be something like with the pump itself. And if you're getting that type of a clicking noise, you might want to think about replacing it or RMAing it, depending on if you have the warranty on it still. It shouldn't be clicking per se, but if you're moving it around like that and it kind of goes away, maybe take a look at how the radiator is mounted. As far as, like, say your pump's here and your radiator's here, try raising the radiator up a little bit, or depending on, how you have it laid out and everything. Hopefully you're not running the radiator down on the bottom flat like that, or in the front, for example, and having it low. But a lot of times, everybody's been doing it a lot of different ways. It hasn't been a widespread big problem. I know a lot of people, that's been a big itchy topic over a little bit, but you're probably more or less fine. But the clicking noise is not necessarily air. I would think that would be something more related to like the pump and stuff. And, if you got warranty on it, I'd probably swap it out. I'd definitely probably swap it out, because it's probably something where it's going to eventually go and it's probably still working, or, something's going on with it there. But yeah, it shouldn't be doing that. It's mounted at the top of the case. Okay. Yeah, I would definitely say it's probably like if it's mounted on like the top of the case and everything, especially up there. Yeah, it could just be the signs of something going on it. So if you still got warranty on it, get that hit up. Yeah. But what about the holes for GPU fittings doing it? Yeah, of course. I mean, any particular stop plug, make sure you have everything closed up before you put the coolant in there. Make sure everything's tight. Make sure you go back and just double check everything. Spend that extra 30 seconds that you weren't going to do right now, and listen to me very carefully. Spend an extra minute and double check everything. You'll thank me later for it. I guarantee it. Just with anything that you do, you go here and you tell yourself you're done. Go back and spend another 20, 40 seconds, double check everything. Think about it. That is going to probably be the biggest, for just about anything that you'll do in your life. It's always good to go, okay, this is good. I like this. I'm done. And then spend an extra minute double checking everything and just look it over again. If you did it 3 times, do it 4. It's going to be the best thing you could do. Guaranteed. No. But it's good common practice, with a lot of things. So, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to sign off here today for Thermaltake Live. This was episode 4, Hard Tube Bending 101, with a Halloween PC giveaway. Guys, you got one more week. We got till Saturday, but we got one more week to get the entries in for this, and we're going to be announcing the giveaway next Tuesday, November 3rd, live here on the channel. And then next stream will be Thursday. We're going to do a Halloween special. We're going to be playing some Halloween games and talking about the Halloween PC and just having some fun, a little bit laid back here on the Thursdays and everything. And then we'll have something, a new showcase here to go over with you guys, as well as the giveaway next Tuesday, a week from today. So thanks again for coming out. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys so much for the follow and getting everything going with our stream. We hope you guys have been liking the content. We appreciate all your support. And yeah, you guys have a great Tuesday. Get some tacos, baby. Woo! But yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see you guys on Thursday for the next one. You guys have a good one, all right? You guys have a good one.